Hi everyone, please subscribe to my channel. Blood Immortal Venerable. See playlist for other chapters and novels. I do not translate the novels. Credits goes to original translator and author of the novel. I only make it as an audiobook so it would be easier to just listen while doing other things. Credits goes to the author of the novel. I convert stories to audiobook for mental health, for multitasking purpose, for accessibility and time saving. Listening to audiobook is also beneficial for people who have disability. It improves our listening skills and improve our English comprehension, vocabulary and other things. So, thank you for listening. Thank you and thank you very much for your support. Chapter 1921. Mysterious Glimmer Balls. Loud croaks were heard from above. A flock of dark crows had arrived, blotting out the sun and plunging the entire sky in darkness. In the blink of an eye, the dark crows managed to cross a third of the distance between the four entrances and the goddess statue. Don't panic, there may be a lot of them but it's very easy to defeat these dark crows. Reginald assured everyone. A fighting intent surged through him as he flew up into the sky. There, he clenched his right hand and suddenly threw a punch towards the dark crows. Bang! His punch landed in the void but still produced a loud bang. Fighting intent gathered in his fist, forming a fist shadow that rushed up into the sky. According to his estimates, the force of his punch could potentially kill the entire flock of dark crows above them. However, the moment the fist shadow hit the crows, a light blue light shone on their bodies, blocking Reginald's force. It's the mysterious glimmer ball. I knew it wasn't going to be that simple. He grumbled through gritted teeth. The so-called mysterious glimmer ball was a kind of supreme treasure of belief in the dark fog forest. Like the star door, it was also consumable but undoubtedly much more precious. These mysterious glimmer balls were very rare in the dark fog forest and it was often the case that only one such ball would appear in every 10 years. A mysterious glimmer ball could be sold at an auction in the floating islands for over 400,000 divine mite coins. However, its rarity wasn't its main selling point. It was more because of its magical functions. If a true god used a mysterious glimmer ball, the supreme treasure of belief would integrate itself into their body. Nobody would be able to detect its existence except until an enemy launched a fatal attack on the true god, in which case the mysterious glimmer ball would show its peculiar power and protect its host's body. Thus, a mysterious glimmer ball could be equivalent to an automatic second life that could come in handy in the most critical moment. And that was why its price was always so high. Reginald's attack, which could have certainly killed the dark crows, merely bounced off because of the mysterious glimmer balls that wrapped around their bodies. These dark crows were weak and there was no way that they could resist Reginald's attack themselves. However, the power of such a rare and mystical treasure protected these crows from death and rendered Reginald's attack useless. As a result, none of the dark crows was killed. At the same time, the dark crows on the other parts of the valley also flashed blue. Kelsey's eyes widened at the sight. So many. I could make a fortune from the amount of mysterious glimmer balls in these crows. One mysterious glimmer ball was already worth hundreds of thousands of divine mite coins and there was a flock above them. There were probably around hundreds of thousands due to the mass number of crows which did equate to a large fortune. However, as a supreme treasure of belief, once a mysterious glimmer ball was used then it would be impossible for anyone to ever use it again. Stop daydreaming, we have to kill them. Elena shouted before rushing towards the dark crows to attack. Since his first punch didn't work, Reginald threw a second punch towards the flock. The mysterious glimmer balls in those crows' bodies had already been broken, so the moment the fist shadow reached the dark crows, they were instantly smashed into a mass of flesh, mud and black feathers. As they fell, a large amount of divine mite coins rained down from the sky. From previous experience, these dark crows mostly relied on their speed to destroy the goddess statue. Their defense, however, was terribly low and they were quite easy to kill. It wouldn't be difficult for the true gods to eliminate all of them if they went all out. However, the crows had the help of the mysterious glimmer balls so the true gods would have to launch more than 2 attacks to kill them, which was going to be quite challenging. As the crows were eliminated, divine mite coins continued to rain down from the sky. Unfortunately, Reginald did not have the time to pick any up since he was too busy dealing with the dark crows. Zen looked at the densely packed dark crows inquisitively. 4 swords, he shouted, summoning 4 invisible long swords. Swish, 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 swish. These 4 swords quickly spiraled and slashed the air, attempting to attack the dark crows. A sheen of blue once again shone on the dark crows' bodies, negating the Buddha Emperor sword's attack. However, Zen already thought of this and clustered the 4 swords into 2 groups. Once the Buddha Emperor sword slashed at the crows, the Grand Sun sword followed shortly after. Since the dark crows had now lost the protection of the mysterious glimmer balls, the Grand Sun Sword was able to cut through them with a powerful slash. On the other side, the Long Vine Sword and Heavenly Tooth Sword operated with the same strategy. The four swords stuck by this system and eventually cleared the area in front of them. Divine Might coins fell along with the black feathers and covered the ground. However, just as he cleared the flock in front of him, another dense mass of crows flew towards him all over again. The sky was overrun with enemies soon enough. He didn't even get to pick up the Divine Might coins before he was in battle once again. The situation was controllable in the beginning. The true gods were able to exert their all in killing all the dark crows and prevent them from reaching the goddess statue. However, they were quickly running into problems. Since the difficulty of the time sea forbidden land rose, so did the rewards. Like the poisonous wolf scorpions, if any of the dark crows died, then a Divine Might coin would fall. Getting 400 or 500 Divine Might coins in one journey to a forbidden area was already a big harvest. Now, just a single slash would be enough to grant a warrior hundreds of Divine Might coins, literally making it rain with money. Even the true gods that participated in the astronomical transit day celebration, who came from the richest and most powerful clans, found it hard to resist the temptation of harvesting such a large amount of Divine Might coins. After killing a few dark crows, a true god took the time to gather the Divine Might coins and put them into his Sumeru space. Seeing such a scene caused another true god to get angry. Here he was working hard and fighting against the dark crows, while this fellow over here had the time to pick up the Divine Might coins in secret. Afraid of earning less than what he worked for, this true god then also tried his best to collect the money off the ground. Greed could oftentimes be deadly. Since there were quite a few who did not want to get the short end of the stick in looting, they began to scramble around and pick up as many Divine Might coins as they could off the ground. Unlike killing the poisonous wolf scorpions, it was hard to tell who killed which crow, so some even got into disputes over ownership of the reward. It was this reason that the defense built around the goddess statue began to crumble. A large group of dark crows broke through the weakness in the defense and rushed straight towards the goddess statue. Don't pick up the coins. Focus on the crows. These coins will be equally divided amongst everyone. Get through this crisis first and eliminate these crows so we can reap bigger rewards later on. Reginald burst out in anger. He couldn't help but feel extremely frustrated at the short-sightedness of these people. They were blinded by the surge of prizes and grew greedy that they ended up scrambling to get as many rewards as they could. They didn't think of the fact that they would need to survive this wave of beasts in order to earn the better, more astonishing prizes such as supreme treasures of belief in the following stages. Unfortunately, these true gods could only see what was in front of them and were afraid that the Divine Might coins at their feet would be taken away by the others. Because of this mentality, they let the dark crows slip by and fly over their heads. Ka, ka, ka. With the goddess statue left unprotected, a large group of dark crows finally reached it successfully. Chapter 1922, Bevan Moon. True gods who had been to the dark fog forest knew that these dark crows weren't that powerful. Even low-ranked true gods would be able to kill them easily. These dark crows always came densely packed in groups and resided in the shadow of the dark fog forest. As long as they found any true gods, they would flock to them and attack them. It was true, these dark crows weren't too powerful, but there was strength in numbers. If a large group managed to surround an unsuspecting true god, then their destructive power could potentially be devastating. Their beaks were awfully powerful and potentially lethal even to mid-rank true gods. If surrounded, a true god could have their entire head pierced with these beaks along with their bones. After reaching the goddess statue, the crows ferociously began to peck at it with their beaks. The constant tirade of pecking produced a chilling drumming noise. Cracks quickly began to appear on the surface of the statue. It was only going to be a matter of time before it crumbled into dust with the amount of dark crows that kept pecking at it. Zen's heart couldn't help but sink at the sight, and he quickly dashed in the direction of the goddess statue. However, before he could even get close, he saw another figure come from not far away. It was Nellie, holding a short sword and dressed smartly in a suit. Red dots of light flashed from under her feet and she circled the statue once. The circle quickly formed into a strange killing array. With the formation of the killing array, a strange rune appeared above each dark crow that pecked onto the goddess statue. Die! Nellie screamed with a murderous look in her eyes before her figure disappeared into a blur. Swoosh! She slashed at the crows with incredible speed. The dark crows, bodies shone with blue light from the mysterious glimmer balls at Nellie's first strike. Her attack was simply negated and the crows resumed to peck at the goddess statue. The cracks on the statue were widening rapidly. Landing on her feet after her first strike, Nellie lightly tapped her toe on the ground and looked back at the crows. Again. Nellie's body disappeared a second time, transforming into a blur headed for the crows. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The dark crows that pecked at the statue were quickly slashed in half, reduced to nothing but meat and feathers. 2 attacks and a clean kill. It was quite impressive. She turned her head and saw Zen. She quickly shot him a smile hinting at provocation. Come on. With a shout, Nellie looked towards another approaching flock of crows above. She jumped and quickly made another circle that enveloped them. Zen smiled and followed right after her. Since there was quite a number of true gods more concerned with scrambling after the divine might coins, those who were more focused on killing the dark crows had to double their efforts to protect the goddess statue. Unfortunately, their best effort didn't seem to be enough. A couple of crows still broke through their defenses and pecked at the statue from time to time. Despite being killed almost immediately by the true gods, the crows still caused some significant damage. We can't go on like this. Reginald roared in anger. Stop picking up the divine might coins. I already told you. Everyone will get an even share once we kill all these crows. His words did not have any effect, to his frustration. After seeing the extensive damage the goddess statue had suffered, some true gods gave up and focused on getting as much money as they could instead. They figured that they would be unable to enter the second stage of the forbidden area at this point, so they might as well seize the opportunity to make a profit off this venture. They might regret it in the future if they missed this chance. This behavior did not just piss Reginald off. Even Soren and other top-rank true gods looked angry. Top-rank true gods were naturally more ambitious than ordinary true gods. Divine might coins were indeed very tempting, but they hoped for better rewards in the long run. It frustrated them that the fellows with them were short-sighted and only focused on what they could see. Let me do it, a top-rank true god said. Bevan Moon. Reginald couldn't help but be surprised, but a joyous smile soon appeared on his face. That's good. Bevan Moon and Reginald both came from the floating island of the Moon Clan, but one came from the Moon Sect and the other from the War God Hall. Given the absurdity of their situation, someone had to step up. Killing the crows wasn't hard, but it proved challenging since they all needed to launch at least 2 attacks to kill each batch. Strategy and cooperation were key, but they couldn't do that if some of them were too greedy and scrambling on the ground for divine might coins. As luck would have it, Bevan Moon cultivated the Great Dominance technique. He took a deep breath and a light brown gem appeared between his brows. This gem was a pure magic stone that could greatly enhance the momentum of his soul. When the light brown gem appeared, it began to flash brightly and exerted an extremely strong soul pressure amongst everyone present. It felt like being in the presence of a holy being. Of course, Bevan Moon was merely a top-rank true god and his soul wasn't anywhere near the strength of a consummate true god, much less a holy being. However, with the help of the Great Dominance technique, he could project an irresistible aura that could give off the illusion of him being a holy being. Everyone, including those that were scrambling around for coins, felt a chill run down their spines. Everyone, let's get rid of the crows first. Once we've dealt with them, then we can divide the divine might coins equally. If anyone dares disobey, they will die. At the mention of the word, die, Bevan Moon raised his voice and boomed his threat so that it could be heard by everyone. Many of the true gods present trembled at his orders and felt that they would really die if they disobeyed. It was an empty threat, of course. Bevan Moon couldn't really join hands with other top-rank true gods to kill them if they chose to collect the divine might coins instead of fighting the crows. There were so many holy beings watching outside the Time-Sea Forbidden Land after all, and most of the true gods here were closely connected with them. Killing without a legitimate reason could only result in troublesome consequences. However, the true gods subconsciously chose to believe Bevan Moon's words and follow his orders. This was the magic of the Great Dominance technique. At a high enough level, it enabled one to have a strong leading power that caused other people to submit humbly. Let's just kill these dark crows first. Everyone, let's stop gathering the coins. Since Bevan said that the coins will be equally divided later, then it would be best if we deal with the crows first. Another flock is coming. Everyone get ready. The true gods were now resolute and no longer had greed clouding their vision. They were motivated to fight the crows instead of gathering up their divine might coins. Most of them were not truly resolute and were merely influenced by the Great Dominance technique. Nonetheless, it still worked to unite them. The goddess statue was once again surrounded protectively by the true gods. With their concerted effort, the protective circular ring grew larger. The dark crows could no longer cross this line and hurt the goddess statue. Chapter 1923, Abyss Demons. Dark crows were crushed by the true gods one after another, leaving a thick layer of divine might coins that blanketed the valley. It was an impressive amount even for the rich clans on the floating islands, but under the suppression of the great dominance technique deployed by Bevan, nobody dared to scramble for the divine might coins. Everyone did their best to try and kill the crows in the sky. Even though rime butterflies in the first wave and the poisonous wolf scorpions in the second wave were easy to deal with, the crows in the third wave made them feel some pressure. Just 5 minutes later, no more crows appeared from the 4 entrances of the valley. The fight with the third wave of beasts came to an end. The light brown gem on Bevan's forehead slowly dimmed and dissipated as he quietly retreated to the side. It disappeared along with the powerful aura that emitted from his body. With Bevan no longer suppressing the true gods, they turned to greedily look at the divine might coins. If nobody stopped them, then the true gods would probably be fighting for the coins in just a moment. "Don't take any of that. Gather them together," Reginald ordered. His entire body emitted a powerful aura from his fighting intent that was boiling in his body. If no one stepped in, the low-rank true gods and mid-rank true gods wouldn't get any divine might coins because all of them would fall into the hands of the top-rank true gods. That wasn't difficult for the true gods to understand, and so they didn't act rashly. Reginald and the other top-rank true gods waved their hands and the divine might coins on the ground gathered together, forming a small hill that was as high as 40 or 50 feet. With those top-rank true gods guarding the small hill of divine might coins, no one dared to take a move. The pile contained 700,000 or 800,000 divine might coins, and if they were divided equally, every true god would get a good share. Under the command of Reginald, all the true gods got in line and orderly took the divine might coins. After distributing the divine might coins, Reginald said, "The first 3 waves of beasts are only the preliminary levels of the trial. Based on past experiences, there wouldn't be many beasts in the 4th round, but they're very powerful. Be careful." Many true gods nodded. They didn't know how long they would stay here, but if they persisted and fought one more wave of beasts, they would get more rewards. They would be more resolute because of the expectations in their hearts. Rumble. As soon as Reginald finished speaking, the valley began to tremble again. Everyone turned and fixed their eyes on the entrances, and Zen was no exception. A huge sword with flames rose from an entrance, and a black huge claw with many sharp thorns on the back that was holding the sword came after. Bang! Thundering footsteps erupted when a huge figure walked out from that entrance. Bang! 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 Each time it took a step, the whole valley shook. "What's that?" Surprised, Zen asked as he raised his eyebrows. It was a monster as high as 50 or 60 feet. Compared to the giant monsters in the Swirl Forest, this one wasn't especially tall. It wasn't too big, but the monster's appearance was just too ferocious, and one look would repulse people. No one wanted to face it. There were 2 huge horns on its head and it had a skinless face. 2 dark red eyeballs bulged out of its sockets and its bones were exposed. Flames burned on the outer ring of its eyeballs and it emitted the pungent smell of sulfur. "It's a monster from the abyss. The abyss demon is coming. Who'll fight it first?" The most terrifying of the 4 great forbidden areas was the abyss demon region. The Time Sea Forbidden Land, together with 4 others, were listed as the 6th level forbidden areas. When true gods explored the Time Sea Forbidden Land, they usually wouldn't go too deep. Because the deeper they went, the more strange the time law was. Even consummate true gods couldn't resist some kinds of time law. Ordinary true gods usually stopped after they explored the 2nd stage, while consummate true gods could explore the 3rd stage at most. Very few consummate true gods would dare to break into the 4th stage of the Time Sea Forbidden Land. The 5th and 6th stages weren't opened at all because of the rule set by the leader of the Sun-Blind race. There wasn't any strange time law in the Abyss Demon region. However, almost all of the terrifying legends in the entirety of the Divine Land came from the Abyss Demon region. In countless divine eras, billions of divine citizens and true gods had a rich imagination about death and hell. Those thoughts turned into negative faith energy and were constantly gathered in the Abyss Demon region, creating the most terrifying forbidden area. It was said that in the bottom of the Abyss Demon region, some powerful fiends could even kill holy beings. The Abyss Demon was a kind of ferocious beast that existed only on the surface of the Abyss Demon region, but it wasn't something an ordinary true god could fight against. Even Reginald, Bevan, and the other top-ranked true gods felt that it would be very tricky to deal with it. Bang! 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 What was worse was that there were 4 of them. They appeared from the 4 entrances, waving their huge swords of flames and trudged to the goddess statue. Their tails made of black bones swayed like a long whip. A diamond-shaped sting was at the tip of their tails, one of the most powerful weapons used by the Abyss Demons. It was fortunate that the Abyss Demons were very slow in their movements. Step by step, they slowly walked towards the goddess statue. I've never been to the Abyss Demon region before, Reginald stated. Who is experienced in dealing with them? The Abyss Demon region wasn't a place everyone could go to. I am, replied Soren with a faint smile. What should we do? Asked Reginald. They're very powerful. Soren shook his head. No top-rank true god present here can resist any of their blows. Some of the true gods subconsciously looked at the star door as their hearts sank at those words. The top-rank true gods weren't a match for the Abyss Demons, and so it was better to run away as soon as possible. They already got enough divine might coins. Let's give up. Even top-rank true gods won't be a match for them, we'll only be killed if we fight them. We already have had the harvest that has far exceeded our expectations in this time-sea forbidden land. We have no regrets. Soren stared at the Abyss Demons, which were walking slowly in the distance, and spoke. The Abyss Demons' weakness is that they're very slow. In fact, they're a kind of puppet made up of the bones of fiends, and they're not very smart. If we want to kill them, we have to delay them as much as possible, and we shouldn't get too close to them. Cold air rose from his hands as he spoke, and a handful of ice cocoons appeared in his hands. Exquisite ice butterflies broke out from the cocoons and flew around him. He said confidently, "Do you understand what I mean?" Chapter 1924. Attacked by True Gods. The true gods present understood Soren's words, but they still had no confidence in their hearts. However, Soren was always free and alone, living in total isolation from society. Although he was very strong, he was not as good a commander as Reginald was, and he did not have the character of a leader like Bevan did. Seeing that everyone was silent, Soren felt helpless. All he could do was to tell Reginald, "You give the orders. The first step is to make these guys slow down as much as possible. In fact, it's not that difficult." Reginald nodded and swept his gaze across the crowd. "Bevan, you led a team to deal with the Abyss Demon in the east." Nathaniel and Jolyon. Before anyone even had the time to blink, Reginald had already divided the true gods present into 4 teams, which immediately proceeded to charge towards the 4 Abyss Demons. Zen was assigned to Soren's group. Soren had previously had the experience of exploring the Abyss Demon region, so he ran towards the Abyss Demon directly, stopping when he was about 20 feet away from it. Then he raised his arm and pointed at the Abyss Demon slowly and deliberately. "Go." A multitude of translucent ice butterflies floated towards the Abyss Demon. Swish, swish, swish. These ice butterflies continuously threw themselves at the Abyss Demon. Butterfly-shaped ice marks formed on the body of the Abyss Demon in the places where the butterflies had hit it. The Abyss Demon was extremely slow. And after the butterflies had left their marks on the Abyss Demon's body, it became slower still, moving at half of its previous speed. It looked as if it was trying to walk underwater, each step taking over 5 seconds. "You lot, help me out here, don't just stand there watching," Soren yelled, frustrated at the true gods that did nothing but passively watched from behind as he faced the Abyss Demon. Stirred into action by Soren's sudden scream, the true gods began to attack. Zen stretched out his hand and made a strange gesture, as if he was patting the air. A translucent long vine sword shot out from his hand and transformed into countless vines that wrapped themselves tightly around the Abyss Demon. This Abyss Demon's power was astonishing. It was able to break the vines just by lifting its feet. However, the long vine sword also impaired the Abyss Demon's mobility, making it slow and disoriented. Snow attack. A mid-rank true god thus summoned the internal momentum of the snow godly way. Soon after, a white cloud appeared above the head of the Abyss Demon. Snowflakes floated down from it, and as they descended, they congregated to form a spinning storm which engulfed the Abyss Demon completely. The other true gods also used their own skills to immobilize the Abyss Demon. With everyone working together, the speed of the Abyss Demon continued to reduce, and it became increasingly difficult for it to make even the smallest of movements. It resembled a tattered, badly made puppet trying to imitate a living creature's movement. "That's enough. The body of this Abyss Demon is very thick. Everyone, use the most powerful technique you possess," commanded Soren. With these words, he turned his palm slightly and pulled out a long, translucent sword. Condensing a tiny bit of extreme cold power in his arm, he poured it into the sword. As the cold power siphoned into it, the translucent long sword turned blue, spreading currents of cold air all around it. Soren lifted the ice-laden sword and swung it fiercely at the Abyss Demon standing 20 feet away from him. "Spiritual ice hacking," he shouted coldly. Whoosh. The azure blue light emanating from the sword formed itself into a glowing scythe in midair, which then slashed at the Abyss Demon at lightning speed. Unable to move, it was impossible for the Abyss Demon to dodge the lightning-fast scythe of light released by Soren's icy sword. Seeing the sword light, everyone was secretly surprised. Saran was one of the most powerful top-rank true gods after all. This sword light looked ordinary, but there was a great power contained within it. If an ordinary true god was hit by a strike of this sword, they would surely die. They wondered how many sword strikes the abyss demon could bear. In what seemed less than a second, the blue sword light made countless lashes at the abyss demon's body. Clap! As the sword light collided with the abyss demon once again, it suddenly exploded, emitting a burst of dazzling blue light. Once the light had dissipated, everyone observed the damage, shocked. The burst had only left a shallow mark on the chest of the abyss demon. Is the abyss demon's body so hard and strong? It doesn't seem injured at all, even after Saran's sword attack, and he is a top-rank true god. How can we kill it? Saran's face looked unsurprised. It is extremely difficult to kill an abyss demon. There are only 4 of them here and I think we can manage to kill them if we give it our best effort. It is much better than the last time, when our Dongfang clan members went to explore the abyss demon region and ended up being chased by hundreds of abyss demons. If it was so difficult to kill just one abyss demon, dealing with hundreds of them seemed impossible. Just the thought alone made the true gods tremble with fear. Normally, the true gods wouldn't explore the abyss demon region. Some elites of the rich clans on the floating islands would enter the abyss demon region only after extensive preparation. Nevertheless, despite all their precautions, any true gods exploring the abyss demon region would still be in great danger. Let's attack it, said Saran. He didn't bother to explain in too much detail. Brandishing his long sword once again, he continued to slash with the sword light. The other true gods didn't hesitate. Seeing how slow the abyss demon's movements were, they realized that as long as they kept a reasonable distance from it, it was not much unlike a stationary target, nothing to be afraid of. Holy thunder kill! Crack, crack, crack. A true god released the thick lightning, launching it haphazardly at the abyss demon. Sacred blood hacking. Buzz. The giant, blood-red blade slashed down horizontally, emitting a grating sound when it cut the body of the abyss demon. Zen made use of the other 3 long swords to attack the abyss demon, leaving numerous marks on its body. The abyss demon continued to stand motionless after the attacks of dozens of true gods. However, despite its lack of movement, it seemed that the continuous attacks had irritated it. Groggy and uncoordinated, it waved the flame sword, trying to adjust its trajectory, roaring, woo, woo, woo. It turned to move towards one of the true gods. However, as all sorts of restrictions were acting upon its body, its advance was extremely slow. Many of the true gods were nimble and fast, like rabbits, attacking while retreating. The abyss demon resembled a turtle being beaten. Although its armor was sturdy, it was bulky and slow, and couldn't touch any true god. It's very simple, a true god said with a smile. Sooner or later, we will be able to kill this monster. I wonder what reward will we get for killing the abyss demon. It's so powerful, and if it dies, will the supreme treasure of belief appear? Once the true god mentioned the reward, all the other true gods' faces immediately displayed excitement. At the same time, they all glanced tentatively at Saran. If a supreme treasure of belief really was to appear, how would they distribute it? It would not be right for Saran to possess it alone. Many of the true gods had a faint suspicion in their hearts. If they worked hard to help kill the abyss demon but received no reward, no one would want to help kill the next one. Click, click. After a while, the continuous attacks of the true gods began to take visible effect. Cracks started to appear on the surface of the abyss demon's body. At the same time, its ribs, now full of thorns, began to break, one by one. It seems that it can't hold on much longer. Everyone, come on. Some of the true gods began inching closer towards the abyss demon. If killing the abyss demon would truly get them the precious supreme treasure of belief, then they would surely try their best to be the first one to get it. However, unbeknownst to them, danger was just around the corner. Woo, woo, woo. The abyss demon managed to unleash a fiery aura as it raised the flame sword in its hand, and red flame shot out from its pupils. At the same time, its bones glowed, coated with a layer of golden light. Protected by that layer of golden light, all the true gods' thurgies lost their effects. Regaining its original speed, the abyss demon charged at the nearest mid-rank true god. The mid-rank true god was still thinking about how to snatch the reward. Before he could react, he was grabbed by the big black hand of the abyss demon. Chapter 1925, Dangerous Situation. Everything seemed to move in a blur as the abyss demon suddenly seized the mid-rank true god. As soon as the true god came to his senses, he struggled frantically in an attempt to escape the abyss demon's clutches. The abyss demon, however, was like a giant snake that had coiled around its prey. No matter how hard the mid-rank true god struggled, he couldn't get rid of its grip. There was nothing he could do except watch as the abyss demon raised the flame sword and stabbed it into his chest. Whop! The flaming sword pierced the mid-rank true god's chest. Blood spurted out from his gaping wound before the blazing flames vaporized it. Soon enough, the fire had completely engulfed the mid-rank true god. Ah! The abyss demon raised its flame sword while the mid-rank true god's body still writhed in the middle of it, his shrill cries filling the humid air. Soon enough, his screams stopped and the mid-rank true god's body turned into ashes and drifted away in the wind. Whew! The ground shook as the abyss demon waved its sword. Thick smoke billowed in the air as the rising flames rose higher and higher. The scorching flames released terribly hot heat waves, which swept over the other true gods. At that moment, the abyss demon's body glowed with a golden light and it rushed towards the true gods at an extremely fast speed. Run! What's going on? It's so fast! Not only was the abyss demon immensely fast, it had a very strong defensive power and incredible strength. An ordinary true god could never stand a chance against it. Perhaps, only the consummate true gods could fight it. The golden light around the abyss demon shone brighter, and then it broke free from all its restraints. It was finally able to move even faster, and all the true gods scrambled to dodge and panic. Meanwhile, Zen's body kept on sliding backward. He gently waved his hands. Then the Grand Sun Sword and the Heavenly Tooth Sword shuttled back and forth as they tried to hit the abyss demon. Clang! There was a loud, metallic clang when the two invisible swords collided against the abyss demon's hard body. Both swords, however, disintegrated. The abyss demon didn't care about Zen at all. It chased after the true gods at an extremely fast speed and slashed at them with its flame sword. 3 low-rank true gods failed to dodge the abyss demon's attack, and they ended up being cut in half. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Luckily, it did not necessarily mean that they would die. However, the bad thing was that the flame of the great sword came from the abyss demon region, and those who made contact with it even in the slightest bit would be burnt to a crisp. True enough, the faces of the 3 low-rank true gods melted away like candle wax as they died, along with their harrowing screams. Everyone was truly frustrated at their current situation, but no one else fought the abyss demon back except Zen. Not even Soren and the other top-rank true gods were confident enough to fight. In any case, they would die if the abyss demon did hit them. Wah! Wah! Just then, Zen heard multiple roars from behind him. He turned around and saw that another abyss demon was covered with a layer of golden light, and then it brandished the huge flame sword in its hand and started to chase the true gods. The other 3 teams had previously used the same method to fight the abyss demons, but in the last moments of the fights, each of the abyss demons' bodies glowed with a golden light, which made them more powerful. These abyss demons will have that ability during the worst times. Zen exclaimed. He raised his head and looked at Soren, who was in a state of panic. It seems that Soren also doesn't know anything about this. And since the Time Sea Forbidden Land has gotten more difficult, I bet these abyss demons are no ordinary ones either, he muttered. Woo, woo, woo. Ah, ah. Just as he was trying to strategize a plan, he heard the screams of young girls from the other side. He looked around and saw that Elena and Nellie failed to dodge and the abyss demon had caught them. This is bad. Zen couldn't care less about the abyss demon in front of him anymore, and instead dashed towards Elena's direction. The abyss demon tightly gripped Elena's and Nellie's slender waists with its huge hand, their bodies pressed together. It used its other hand to wave its huge flame sword, and it looked like it was going to cut their heads. Elena! Laquisha screamed. The flame spear that she held moved and sent out a ray of flame spear radiance, which continuously attacked the abyss demon's body. The spear radiance was so sharp that it pierced the golden light that enveloped the abyss demon's body. The light then repeatedly reflected off its skin and bore small holes. Yet, the injury was nothing to the abyss demon, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. On the other side, Kelsey and Pascal were deeply worried as well. Elena! They both shouted. At that point, Pascal leapt into the air and unleashed an extremely powerful force as he ran towards the abyss demon. Another top-ranked true god from the Mew clan brought out a large saber and proceeded to hack at the abyss demon in an attempt to save Nellie. Unfortunately, their attacks were only like an itchy scratch that didn't do substantial damage to the abyss demon. Suddenly, they were interrupted by someone else's presence. Get out of the way! Zen roared as he launched himself at the abyss demon. Pascal, Laquisha, and the others were slightly stunned but wasted no time and gave way to Zen. Nellie and Elena squirmed helplessly in the abyss demon's hand. It wasn't long before their fear was replaced with slight hope when they saw someone rush towards them at a very fast speed. On the other hand, the other true gods had already escaped somewhere. They turned around once more, but they only looked at the others with pity. It was bad that those two women were about to die today, but they were secretly glad that they managed to run away fast and dodge the Abyss Demon's attacks. 4 swords, Zen shouted. He ran towards the Abyss Demon while he extracted the strength contained in the 9 divine stars in his inner world like mad, which caused the 9 divine stars to spin at a high speed. Then, the light they emitted dimmed for a while as well. Back in the arena of legends, he never used all of his strength to fight the low-rank true gods, no matter how powerful they were. He only extracted about 30% of his strength to maintain the constant movement of the 4 swords. Now, however, was not the time to hesitate. He quickly pulled out all of his strength source. Finally, the 4 invisible swords showed their true, hideous and dreadful aura in front of everyone. 4 swords in one. The 4 swords were now scattered in different places after Zen had summoned them. Then with a single thought in his mind, the 4 swords spun like crazy and fused together into one invisible gigantic sword. The gigantic sword was almost the same size as the Abyss Demon's huge flame sword. Of course, the sword contained all of Zen's strength source. His strength source had come from Holy J, and it was equal to 1/3 of a holy being's strength. Back when Zen trained constantly, the 9 stars also gradually grew and expanded. Thus, they could contain more amounts of strength source. Despite that, however, he did not have the confidence to kill the Abyss Demon. If even a top-rank true god couldn't kill it after they'd gone all out, it was impossible for Zen to kill it with just one sword strike. Then again, his goal was to save Elena, and not to kill the Abyss Demon. There are cracks on its arm. The Abyss Demon had been under siege by a group of true gods for a long time, and the surface of its body was covered in bumps and cracks. Zen carefully observed the Abyss Demon's left arm and found that a large fissure had already appeared at the upper end of it. I should hit its arm. At this moment, Zen had no time to think too much. He controlled the giant sword to attack the crack on its left arm. Elena and Nellie only felt a tremendous force sweeping past their heads. It was a horrible force that could terrify people. It seemed as if they would be smashed to pieces if they touched it. Bang, crack, the area was filled with a loud ringing sound when Zen hit the crack. A loud thud followed after the Abyss Demon's left arm, which was as huge as a tree trunk, broke and fell off. The 2 girls fell down when the Abyss Demon's left arm got amputated. Suddenly, the Abyss Demon waved the flame sword with its right hand and slashed towards Elena and Nellie. The scorching hot flame sword brushed past them from above their heads, but it managed to burn their hair. Chapter 1926. The Orange Light Ball. Zen went all out to strike, consuming almost 99% of his strength source. The 9 stars within his inner world dimmed rapidly. Most of the creatures in his inner world had no clue what happened. Only the evil god looked up and muttered, "The creator is fighting a powerful opponent again." Bang, bang, bang. The Abyss Demon's broken arm with Elena and Nellie in its grip fell to the ground. The true gods who saw it widened their eyes in shock. These Abyss Demons had astonishing defensive power, every true god was well aware of it. Though they had used their most powerful killing method, they couldn't cause any substantial damage to any of the Abyss Demons. Some of the low-rank true gods' attacks couldn't even leave a single trace on their bodies. When Thad launched a full attack, he had actually cut off an Abyss Demon's arm. Just how powerful was this guy's attack? If even the Abyss Demon couldn't withstand that blow, then who else among the true gods present could? Although one of its arms was cut off, Elena and Nellie were still in danger. The Abyss Demon's flame sword missed its target and tried chopping Elena's and Nellie's heads right off again. Having used up most of his strength source, Zen could no longer burst out any power. It was too difficult for him to drag Elena and Nellie out from the Abyss Demon's hand. But Pascal, standing beside them, took action. He clenched his fist until a light golden fist shadow was formed. Phew, the first shadow began rapidly spinning and rushed towards the Abyss Demon's broken arm. Meanwhile, on the other side, the top-ranked true god of the Mu clan condensed some energy in his hands and heavily pulled back. An invisible wind was formed out of thin air, wrapping around Elena and Nellie, dragging them toward the top-ranked true god. By this pull, the two, along with the broken arm, were moved for about 40 or 50 feet. Crack, the Abyss Demon's sword came down right then, but rather slowly. Finally, its sword landed on the ground and triggered a crack. It lit up with a blazing flame, as though it was an entrance right to perdition. Withdraw. Because the girls had been rescued from the Abyss Demon, everyone quickly distanced themselves from it and Zen was no exception. The strike had consumed 99% of Zen's strength. He could no longer reach a high speed by relying on bursts of his strength source. But it was still no problem for him to distance himself from the Abyss Demon. The top-rank true god of the Mu clan stretched out his hand, trying to pull Nelly out of the Abyss Demon's broken arm, but it was all in vain. The Mu clan's top-rank true god frowned before seizing a corner of the broken arm and pulling the two girls away. "I'm leaving now. If I stay here any longer, I'll only be courting death. Run away from the star door." Realizing that the situation wasn't getting any better, some true gods rushed to the star door below the goddess statue. But most of them didn't run away and only kept a certain distance from the Abyss Demons. Although these Abyss Demons were tough and mighty, there were only 4 of them in the end. The only weapons they used to attack were the huge, flaming swords in their hands. If these fellows weren't bursting out so suddenly, they weren't actually as scary as everyone imagined. Bang, bang, bang. 4 Abyss Demons waved the enormous flaming swords in their hands and charged right at the true gods, who constantly dodged, relying only on their reflexes. Half a minute later, the golden light being emitted from the surface of the Abyss Demons' bodies gradually dissipated and their speed slowed down. The golden light disappeared. I knew that the golden light wouldn't last long. "Everybody, go!" In the midst of their fleeing, the true gods heaved a sigh of relief. Although the Abyss Demons were powerful, once they started slowing down, they posed no real threat. Frost explosion, splash. Tens of thousands of ice crystals smashed into the Abyss Demons like a heavy downpour of rain while the white frost floated in the air, layers upon layers. All things grow, crack, thick vines sprouted from the ground and quickly wrapped around the legs of all the Abyss Demons. All sorts of methods were exerted on the Abyss Demons, restricting their movements. Under the previous siege of the true gods, the 4 Abyss Demons had already been put in a difficult position. After losing the golden light's protection, they were unable to resist the true gods' attacks. Crack! A huge crack suddenly appeared on the waist of one of the Abyss Demons. Its huge body lost balance until its upper half was cut all the way off, falling to the ground. "Finally, we finished one. The Abyss Demons are too powerful, it isn't easy even for a consummate true god to kill one. But somehow, we managed it. Ha ha ha." Thanks to everyone's cooperation, they had killed such a powerful monster, filling everyone with excitement. "Who?" Another Abyss Demon roared desperately. Before it died, the Abyss Demon began inserting its flaming sword into the ground, kneeling down on one knee with its head bowed. Then, it ceased to move. The remaining 2 Abyss Demons ended in a similar way. Just as Saran had said, these Abyss Demons were puppets made up of fiends' bones. It was extremely difficult to destroy them all, but after a certain number of attacks, they were finally paralyzed. None of the Abyss Demons could move. Glancing at each other, the true gods' eyes once again glowed with a fiery light. "What's our reward for killing these Abyss Demons? Will we get tons of divine might coins? If there are only a few supreme treasures of belief, how should we divide them?" Upon hearing this, many of the low-rank true gods were at a loss. Meanwhile, the top-rank true gods quietly approached the Abyss Demons. Getting rewarded was also on their mind. Even the first or second level supreme treasures of belief were incomparably precious. If 4 supreme treasures of belief really came out of killing 4 Abyss Demons, they didn't even need to guard the goddess statue anymore. A fierce battle for the treasures would probably erupt, every single true god becoming an enemy. Through long social practices, these rich clans had some established rules, preventing them from fighting each other in the forbidden areas. But with the real benefits before them, the rules meant nothing to them. Normally, everyone obeyed the rules, knowing that if they violated them, they would suffer great losses. But once the possible profit they could gain totally outweighed their potential losses, the so-called rules became mere empty words. Sizzle, 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 sizzle. The 4 giant swords inserted into the ground suddenly burst into blazing flames, devouring the Abyss Demons' bodies. An invisible heatwave then spread in ripples within the area. Those true gods did not retreat, however, they continued instead to approach the Abyss Demons, facing the heatwave head-on. The looks in their eyes grew even more vigilant. They were no longer wary of the Abyss Demons, but of the other true gods. Standing by quietly was Zen, calmly watching the flames. It would take some time for his strength source to recover, so he couldn't participate in the fight over the treasures. When the Abyss Demons' bodies were burnt out, the flames gradually dissipated. "Nothing." Zen raised his brows slightly in surprise. "What the heck? There isn't even a single divine might coin. My brother has lost his life for nothing." Alas, if the Abyss Demons left their bones behind, they would still be worth quite an amount of money. It's such a pity that they were burned. The Abyss Demons' bones were taken from real fiends, after all. Even the top-ranked true gods couldn't break them. Their bones alone were extremely valuable. But unfortunately, they were nothing but ashes now. What's that? One of the true gods suddenly piped in. Everyone turned to the ashes and saw that they began glowing with some kind of orange light. A top-ranked true god was extremely fast. Before the others could even react, he jumped up, reached into the ashes, and grabbed the orange ball of light. Ecstasy seemed to come over his face, but as soon as he caught the ball, a miserable scream escaped his mouth. He threw it back quickly, but half of his hand was already charred. Chapter 1927. The Promise of Absolute Beginning. Everyone steered clear of the orange light ball after seeing the top-ranked true god's miserable condition after touching it. After rolling, the ball then began to float strangely. At the same time, more orange light balls emerged from the other three ashes. Buzz. In no time at all, the fist-sized balls suddenly began to emit rays of light. The speed at which the light burst was incredibly fast and the rays of light connected themselves to every true god. Some tried to dodge but it proved impossible. Zen was no exception. A ray of light shot straight at his chest. He raised his hand to touch it but it did not fluctuate at all. This was only for a brief moment. The four light balls soon disappeared along with the light rays that connected with everyone present. However, despite the disappearance of the light, Zen found 3 orange lines inscribed on his chest. These lines weren't divine textures nor were they Sanskrit. They were somewhat similar to the textures on the abyss demons' bodies. Zen couldn't be too sure of the purpose of these textures since he had never seen them before. What are these? A true god huffed, placing his hand on his chest, trying to activate the lines. To his surprise, his attempt actually worked. Buzz. A burst of golden light appeared from the orange lines and enveloped the true god. It was the exact light that flickered on the bodies of the abyss demons. Wait, what's going on? The true god couldn't understand what was happening and was now in a state of mild panic. Nobody could offer him an answer and simply stared, not really knowing how to help him. Outside the time-sea forbidden land, the holy beings also noticed the movement in the valley. They're quite lucky. They were actually able to get 3 promises of absolute beginning after killing those abyss demons, Clark remarked with laughter. This is quite an achievement for them. Although the abyss demons weren't very powerful, ordinary true gods wouldn't have been able to defeat them, one of the demi-holy beings remarked with a nod. The holy beings were well aware of the trials and dangers within the abyss demon region. A demi-holy being would never dare to venture forth without the necessary precautions, let alone a consummate true god. The faith energy gathered there bore the malice of all living creatures from countless divine eras, thus, the monsters there were beyond control. Tell them that the promises of absolute beginning are extremely precious. Don't use them at will, Nicholas said, sending a message to Saran. Back at the valley, everyone still focused on the golden true god. None of them knew what a promise of absolute beginning was, but they absolutely felt the power of this golden light before. When this golden light appeared on the bodies of those abyss demons, they immediately broke free from all limits. Any power from their internal momentum was useless, and the speed of the abyss demons was greatly enhanced. After Soren received Nicholas's message, a look of great joy broke through his face, though he tried his best not to show it. Clearing his throat, he sent a calm and cool message. The Holy Emperor of my clan said that this golden light is called the promise of absolute beginning. It is supposedly a promise passed down from the ancient divine land. Once activated, it can resist all internal momentum during a short amount of time. The promise of absolute beginning. It can resist all the internal momentum. Wow, we are so lucky. There was a look of ecstasy on each true god's face as they looked down at the 3 lines etched on their chests. These lines were very eye-catching in the beginning but had now begun to dull down and gradually fade into their bodies. All true gods and holy beings in the divine land used faith energy from their inner worlds to activate the internal momentum of their godly tiles and display theurgies. The promise of absolute beginning was able to resist any theurgy with the foundation of internal momentum, and the user would be impervious to enemy attack during a certain period of time. So these golden lines can resist all the internal momentum. Zen also remarked in surprise, not quite expecting such a great gift. The value of these 3 lines was now immeasurable. It would be enough to turn things around if a single line was activated during a desperate situation. Activating a promise of absolute beginning could prove extremely handy against those time ghosts. It was unfortunate that they could only use it 3 times. Given its power though, perhaps they should be thankful that they were all given 3 chances to use it. The true gods were naturally overjoyed after hearing Soren's words. Meanwhile, the true god who prematurely activated his promise of absolute beginning felt morose. He wasted such a precious thing by mistake. However, he wasn't the most depressed out of everyone. Several true gods fled to the star door early and were transported to another star door outside the valley. They had now returned and saw the 3 faint lines on everyone's chest. Hearing Soren's explanation as to the purpose of these lines, they immediately regretted their earlier decision that led to them missing such a great opportunity. Zen returned to the goddess statue and simply waited for the next wave of beasts to attack. After Zen cut off the arm of an abyss demon earlier, it had been dragged all the way down to the goddess statue by the top-ranked true god of the Mu clan. The arm still held on tightly to Elena and Nelly. It took quite a lot of effort for the Mu clan and Han clan to rescue them. "Thad, you saved my life again," Elena said with a smile. Nelly stared at Zen for quite a bit before muttering her gratitude, "Thank you." Zen nodded in reply. He didn't really mean to save Nelly. Had he been caught by the abyss demon, then he would have surely died. This wasn't a secret for Nelly. She knew perfectly that if it wasn't for Elena, then Zen wouldn't have taken such a big risk. "How to share this arm?" Pascal asked out of nowhere. The 4 abyss demons were all burned to ashes in the flames, but the arm Zen had cut down remained intact. "Fiend's bones are very valuable. It should go to my clan," Nelly said, chin raised up high with conviction. "That's right." The top-ranked true god of the Mu clan nodded in agreement. Pascal sneered, "That doesn't make sense. Is the Mu clan's name carved on this arm?" "Right, why should it belong to you?" Kelsey retorted. "Well, why should it belong to either of you?" a top-ranked true god from the Fang clan said with an arrogant laugh. It wasn't just the Han clan and the Mu clan that were interested in getting the arm. The true gods didn't know much about the abyss demon region, but they heard a couple of things here and there. Fiends' bones were supposedly very useful, especially in refining pills. The Fang clan's famous Fiend Soul Pill, for example, required such an ingredient. Very few true gods dared venture forth in the abyss demon region, so the Fiends' bones were very rare. A tense atmosphere hung over everyone over the ownership of the broken arm. The other true gods initially showed little interest in the arm, but after seeing the true god of the Fang clan get involved, they figured this was something that was worth a lot. Cut the arm and share the pieces with each other. This bone is extremely strong. How long will it take? Sharing it equally is indeed a good idea. The Han clan was extremely weak in terms of power standing. No top-ranked true god from the clan got invited to the astronomical transit day, only 2 consummate ones, but they were not here right now. Seeing the beginnings of what seemed to be a messy dispute, Reginald took a neutral stance. "Let's not argue. We've got such a good reward in the 4th round, so the next prize must be better. It's not good to break the peace and harmony over an arm. I've got an idea. Whoever cut the arm should be the owner." With that suggestion, Reginald looked at Zen meaningfully. The other true gods also turned to look at him. Some of them completely forgot that the arm was actually cut down by this low-ranked true god. Chapter 1928. The Soul-Killing Ghosts. Zen never intended to join the discussion regarding the ownership of the broken arm. He didn't really have much to rely on in the Time Sea Forbidden Land. The fusion of several hundred kinds of internal momentum was way too violent and he still couldn't control it. His emotion-closing godly way had been greatly improved by his cultivation base, but he really couldn't use it since it was a forbidden way. The godly ways and the thurgies beyond the godly ways he got from the powerful clans above the Time Sea through the Infinity Ruler were all right. However, the greatest thing Zen relied on was the unbelievable amount of strength source within his body. His top priority right now was to refill the 9 stars in his inner world as fast as possible so that he would be ready by the time the next wave of vicious beasts arrived. The 9 stars slowly rotated within his body, exerting a huge gravitation force that continuously drew the chaotic energy into them. His strength source was now filled at around 15%. Reginald announcing that this arm belonged to him came as a bit of a surprise for Zen. What Reginald said was indeed reasonable. Zen cut the arm, so it was perfectly justifiable for him to claim it. It resolved the dispute and even earned Zen a really rare and useful item. Nobody would be willing to hand over such a precious thing to Zen under normal circumstances. Whoever cut it off was irrelevant in the dispute given how everyone wanted a piece of this arm. The strongest warrior could very well take it for his own benefit. However, to bring an end to this messy dispute and ease the tension among the top-ranked true gods, Zen being the arm's rightful owner only seemed to be right. "That's a good idea, Reginald. I also think the arm should go to Thad," Soren agreed with a smile. "That's right. The arm was cut off by him anyway," Nelly said on behalf of her clan. Bevan also agreed with this. Several top-ranked true gods also voiced out their agreement. If anyone else was dissatisfied, they didn't make it known. "Since everyone agrees, then I won't refuse," Zen said, reaching out his hand in order to put the 10-foot-long arm into his space ring. At that moment, a mid-rank true god of the Fang clan stepped forward. Thad, hold on. Zen turned to the fellow. The other true gods frowned. A consensus had already been reached, so what was this fellow doing? This was simply too embarrassing. Saran also frowned. He regarded Zen as a member of his clan. Just as he was about to burst in anger, the mid-rank true god realized that everyone was looking at him in fury. He quickly raised his hands in an effort to quell the crowd's anger. Everyone, you've misunderstood. As you all know, my clan is famous for making pills. This broken arm is really something that my clan can potentially reap a lot of benefits from. Thad, can you sell it to me? You can name the price. Zen smiled and put the broken arm into his space ring. If you want to trade, we should probably wait until we return to the floating islands. I'm afraid this place isn't such a suitable venue for a deal. He didn't really know much about the uses of the Abyss Demon's broken arm, so he wasn't really willing to sell it so casually. Besides, he wasn't lacking in divine might coins. You're right, the mid-rank true god said, bowing and retreating to the side. The fourth wave of beasts killed 8 true gods, 6 were low rank while 2 were mid-rank. The top-rank true gods quickly flew into the air the moment the Abyss Demons activated the promise of absolute beginning, so all of them were safe. Everyone suffered in trying to kill the Abyss Demons, so they now sat down and recuperated their strength around the goddess statue. Zen was also sitting down and resting. After the fourth wave, the Forbidden Land provided them with the necessary amount of time to gather their strength. However, after about 15 minutes, tremors once again came from the valley entrances. Everyone stood up in attention. They all looked at the direction of the tremors with vigilance. 8 true gods had died earlier, and the following waves would no doubt be even fiercer. Any carelessness on their part could result in death. It was true that they had obtained 3 promises of absolute beginning which they could use to survive, however, they still needed to be smart. There might truly be supreme treasures of belief that waited for them later on. The warriors craned their necks and saw lights flickering in the distance. They waited for a long time but couldn't find any sign of any beasts. Everyone looked at each other in dismay. Where were the monsters? A gust of cold air blew on Reginald's face. His expression immediately changed. The monsters are good at hiding themselves. Everyone, use your spiritual sense. As soon as he finished speaking, he spread out his spiritual sense. He drew the outline for the world around him and soon found a group of low shadows crawling at an extremely fast rate. The closest was already in front of him. The shadow immediately sprang up and swung a sharp hook at Reginald's head. Watch out, the soul-killing ghosts are coming. Reginald roared. He quickly retreated backwards, barely avoiding the monster's attack. The sharp hook slid across his head but did not really cause him any major, physical harm. A chill then began to flow through his brain and made his face turn pale. As a soul creature, the soul-killing ghost's hook did not harm people, but it could drag out the souls out of their brains. Retreat. Retreat quickly. Dang it, why didn't we notice them? Ah, the scream came from a mid-rank true god whose eyes rolled up to the back of his head. His soul had been dragged out of his brain by the invisible hook. With his soul out of his body, the soul-killing ghosts immediately erupted into a frenzy. They surrounded the soul and slashed their hooks, tearing it apart. In the blink of an eye, the soul no longer existed. It had been swallowed up by the terrifying creatures. The mid-rank true god stood motionless in his place. Without his soul, he was now merely a walking corpse. He wasn't the only one. Despite Reginald's warning, the group already found themselves surrounded by the ghosts. The targets of each wave of beasts differed. The Dark Crows, for example, targeted the goddess statue first, while the others, such as the Abyss Demons, aimed for the true gods themselves. These soul-killing ghosts were obviously going for the souls of the true gods. Everything was a blur. In an instant, 7 to 8 true gods trembled and spasmed as their souls were dragged out and devoured by the monsters. Zen and the other members of the Han clan were not in the outermost circle, but the sight of their comrades having their souls sucked out of their bodies made a few of them tremble. Under Zen's lead, the Han clan chose to retreat immediately. As he released his spiritual sense, Zen's eyes flashed with a faint green light. Others could only see faint shadows, but with Zen's magic vision, everything was just a bit clearer. He looked into the distance and saw a few cloaked dwarves crawling on the ground. They moved at an extremely fast rate and held thin hooks that were used in taking souls. As he stood there, 2 soul-killing ghosts suddenly jumped up and threw their hooks at him. Humph, he snorted. The internal momentum flashed on his arm and shot out 2 bolts of blue lightning. Clap, clap, The lightning shot the two soul-killing ghosts and hit them square on the chest. Squeak, squeak, squeak. These soul-killing ghosts were without flesh and blood and couldn't resist the power of lightning. As Zen's attack hit them, everyone heard mice-like squeaks before the two monsters vanished into thin air. Hurry up, who cultivates the thunderstorm godly way? Other thunder methods will also work. Bombard them all to death. These creatures disgusted the true gods. Just thinking about their souls getting devoured sent a chill down their spine. Bang, crack, numerous true gods who cultivated the thunderstorm godly way had begun to display their most powerful methods one after another. Chapter 1929, Encirclement. After Zen had struggled to split the two soul-killing ghosts into pieces, they finally released an invisible soul force. The immensely pure soul force circled around for a while before it flew towards him. He, however, had originally planned to dodge it, but he didn't have enough time to do so. The soul force immediately entered his mind and merged with his own soul. As soon as it fused with his mind, he suddenly felt that his soul became a little stronger. Yet at that moment, he quickly figured out something. This is not the broken piece of the soul-killing ghost, this is the reward. He exclaimed. Instead of divine might coins, the soul force was the reward for eliminating the soul-killing ghosts. Such a big prize was beyond his expectations. Meanwhile, the other side became slightly chaotic as some of the true gods were in the middle of a commotion. I have no way of dealing with these ghosts. I need to go first through the star door. Some of them shouted. Although many true gods cultivated 2 or even 3 kinds of godly ways, not every one of them cultivated a godly way related to the thunder. Therefore, those true gods couldn't do anything to deal with those malicious spirits. Crack, 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 crackling sounds filled the air as the true gods fired lightning and retreated at the same time. White, blue, and purple flashes filled the place. Those different thunder laws they exhibited contained different kinds of powers and their corresponding effects. The soul-killing ghosts, however, weren't ordinary ghosts at all. They were intelligent, and they simply crawled away at a very fast speed when faced with lightning. The lightning strikes struck violently, but they only managed to kill about 3 soul-killing ghosts every time. On the other hand, about 8 soul-killing ghosts jumped simultaneously and threw the hooks in their hands once they found a chance to attack. Watch out, Zen warned. He was fortunate that he could see things more clearly with his eyes. The other true gods had to use their soul power to sense the ghosts' presence. They are coming. What should I do? Not far away from Zen was a low-rank true god, who had sensed with his own soul power that the soul-killing ghosts were about to attack him. The whole thing was absolutely chaotic, and the true god became so anxious that he activated the promise of absolute beginning on his chest. Promise of absolute beginning. Buzz. At that moment, golden light appeared in the air and surrounded his whole body. That true god thought that he would be safe when he used the promise of absolute beginning, but the hooks spiraled over and went straight into his mind. His body trembled, and soon enough the hooks had taken his soul away. As for Zen, he gritted his teeth in frustration and the lightning in his hand flashed. Then, he summoned a lightning ball and shot it towards the direction of the ghosts. Yet, the soul-killing ghosts were able to react quickly and scattered themselves everywhere when they noticed the lightning ball. They jumped high up before the lightning ball could land on the ground and simultaneously dragged the true god's soul with them as they left. Explode, shouted Zen. Crack, the lightning ball exploded in advance and covered a radius of about 30 feet. Even then, only 3 soul-killing ghosts were destroyed. The rest of them still managed to drag the true god's soul away and fled. Soon enough, a large group of soul-killing ghosts gathered together and fought viciously for the unlucky true god's soul. Despair filled Zen's eyes when he saw everything clearly. He helplessly shook his head and couldn't help but look away. It was true that the promise of absolute beginning was powerful and precious, like Saran had said. However, the layer of golden light it created could only block the internal momentum in the divine land and any power from the 3,000 godly ways. Any kind of godly way was useless against that golden light. On the other hand, the soul-killing ghosts' hooks were a type of soul attack, so activating the promise of absolute beginning was not really effective. Similarly, the promise of absolute beginning did not work on pure physical strength. The might godly way, however, was a skill that used the power of the internal momentum to increase one's physical strength. No one knew exactly if the promise of absolute beginning was effective against it. Such a theory needed further verification. Most true gods were confident about using the promise of absolute beginning after they had encountered the abyss demons, and thought that activating it would make them invincible. Therefore, many of them activated the promise of absolute beginning in attempts to protect themselves, but little did they know that it would actually kill them. Only half a minute had passed since the soul-killing ghosts started to attack them, but there were already over 20 corpses under the goddess statue, whose souls had been destroyed. Over 20 true gods had been killed, including a top-rank true god from the Lu clan. Swoosh, swoosh, Zen saw 8 or 9 hooks fly in the air and come straight for him. In turn, he twisted his body and retreated backward. There was a loud bang after, followed by Laquisha's scream from behind him. These ghosts want your souls. You can climb onto the goddess statue to avoid them. He looked back and shouted. After that, he saw Elena and Kelsey climb the tree stump below the goddess statue, and Langston already on the stump. Langston didn't think twice and grabbed Laquisha's clothes and threw her onto the stump. Ah, be careful of the hooks. Laquisha shouted as she was thrown into the air. She might have been angry at Zen, but she was never an unreasonable woman. They were already in a very dangerous situation, so how could she still have the heart to be mad at him? Zen nodded and spread out his soul power as well. He didn't turn around, but he knew that several hooks were coming for his skull. Then, he turned around and rolled on the ground to avoid the lethal hooks. Everything was far from over though, as the hooks charged at him from another direction. Left with no other choice, he had to evade them 3 times in a row and had now gotten further and further away from the goddess statue. Go to perdition. A lightning ball materialized in his hand again while he rolled around, and as soon as he got up, he immediately smashed the lightning ball into the ground. Crack. Once again, the soul-killing ghosts had reacted too quickly. As soon as the lightning ball exploded, most of them had already escaped. When Zen stood still, he saw that a large group of soul-killing ghosts had surrounded him. Whoosh. Gusts of cold wind blew around him as the ghosts gingerly crawled forward. They looked like they moved quite slowly, but they actually moved even faster than most true gods. My goodness, they did it on purpose. He shouted desperately. He didn't expect that after he'd dodged them so many times, he would still be forced into their circle. It seemed that they had planned everything well. Run, Laquisha shouted from the stump at the bottom of the goddess statue. I would if I could, Zen lamented. Despite his misery, he created another lightning ball. The thunderstorm godly way was really effective in dealing with these soul-killing ghosts, but these ghosts were very smart. When they noticed the lightning ball in Zen's hand, they avoided getting too close and threw their hooks at him from a certain distance. It wasn't long before the invisible hooks flew towards him with a burst of coldness. The moment he saw what they did, he threw the lightning ball directly at them and tried to get out of their encirclement as the lightning ball exploded. But as soon as he moved, the soul-killing ghosts also moved along with him, and even more soul-killing ghosts joined the encirclement. At the same time, he saw an agile figure not too far away, who continuously dodged the hooks as well. It seemed that the person saw the open space around him. The person jumped up and with a flash of red, landed firmly next to him. It was Nellie. She had been chased all the way by the ghosts as well. Even though she mastered the powerful murdering godly way, she found it difficult to deal with these soul-killing ghosts. She could kill them with the ghost-killing sword, but it was too dangerous to get close to them. A hook almost hit her just now. She saw an open space in front of her while she had been fleeing, so she quickly ran towards it. She didn't know that Zen was in the open space, which turned out to be a circle of the ghosts. Her face dimmed at the sight of the ever-increasing soul-killing ghosts. She tightly gripped her short sword, and couldn't help the uncertainty that washed over her. Chapter 1930, Out of Body. The already chaotic situation had gotten much worse, but the true gods could only rely on themselves. Furthermore, the star door that Pascal and Reginald had set up was still a bit far away from the goddess statue. The root cause was that it was too late when the true gods had found the soul-killing ghosts. Only a few of them who were close to the star door were able to get in, while most of them had to retreat and crawl up the goddess statue. Meanwhile, Nellie had escaped into a new encirclement and looked at the numerous soul-killing ghosts that crawled on the ground. She couldn't help the chill that ran down her spine. Kill them, she asked simply. They didn't have enough time to talk too much. Now, the only way to get rid of the soul-killing ghosts was to kill them and run to the goddess statue. The top-ranked true god of the Mu clan decided to not think twice about the overwhelming number of soul-killing ghosts. After all, how could he save others when he wasn't sure about avoiding their hooks in the air? We don't have another choice, Zen said as another wave of thunder and lightning surged from his palm. There was a hint of blood-red killing intent in Nellie's eyes, which seemed like she was possessed. Even both of her short swords became blood-red and emitted a strong killing intent. It was the ghost-killing sword of the murdering godly way, which contained her killing intent from the soul. It could kill all kinds of evil spirits and ghosts of those who were wrongly put to death. The ghost-killing sword usually had magic to deal with the soul-killing ghosts, but there were too many of them. It was nearly impossible to do. "Let's go," Zen shouted. He opened his palm, then quickly released several bolts of thunder. Crack! Surprisingly, the bolts of thunder from his palm were able to destroy several soul-killing ghosts in front of him. Whoosh! On the other hand, Nellie suddenly turned into a blood-red shadow and ran forward at a speed even faster than Zen's. Her eyes glittered like two rubies when she neared the soul-killing ghosts and she hissed, "Go to perdition." Swish, 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 she wielded her two short swords in a crisscross motion and quickly cut a soul-killing ghost in front of her. She pulled her short swords to her sides, and then two arc-shaped bloodlights spread out and cut four more soul-killing ghosts in half. At that moment, the two of them had cleared a path and immediately tried to escape the encirclement. However, countless hooks quietly rained down on them and completely blocked their path. Zen and Nellie were clearly annoyed. With gritted teeth, they kept moving through the hooks and tried their best to dodge them. Although the two of them were extremely agile, some of the hooks caught up with the back of Zen's head and the tip of his nose. They fell down like raindrops, which made it impossible to avoid them completely. "Zen," Laquisha called out his real name subconsciously as she stared at him. She wanted to run to him, but Pascal stopped her. As for the true gods, most of them had gotten to escape to the tree stump. They looked down at Zen and Nellie, who were in the middle of the crisis, and felt a bit lucky. "They can't be saved," a true god said and shook his head. Even Reginald and Soren didn't look too good, especially Soren. Nicholas had personally asked him a favor, so he was determined to protect Thad. He could fight with all his might if it had been any other evil creature. Heck, he was even sure that he could save Zen if it had been the Abyss demons. Now, however, it was a completely different thing. He had no chance with those dense soul-killing ghosts. He could die if he tried to fight them. "This is bad," Nellie screamed. She twisted her body to avoid one hook, but three other hooks violently went straight towards her and struck her brain. At the same time that Zen hastily retreated back, he felt a chill spread throughout his mind, and a hook pierced into his brain. His soul immediately felt painful. The hook had bitten his soul, and then pulled him out. Master Evil, who had been hiding in Zen's mind, was dumbfounded. He couldn't do anything about what just happened. That hook took out Zen's soul while several other hooks joined in and bit his soul as well, then pulling him towards the soul-killing ghosts. He could only imagine what would happen to him after those soul-killing ghosts had dragged his soul away. They would devour him. When the hooks had pulled his soul, he saw that the same thing had happened to Nellie. She looked absolutely terrified as her soul was dragged to one direction. The true gods on the tree stump could do nothing but sigh defeatedly. They saw that Zen's and Nellie's bodies stood still, which meant that they had lost their souls. Despite the horrible situation, a smile crept up Langston's face as he had climbed higher. He felt very pleased that Thad was killed right there. Elena and Kelsey kept shaking their heads in distress. "That's impossible, he won't die so easily," they lamented. Just then, Laquisha stared at Zen and released her perception to chase after his soul. "His soul hasn't been torn apart yet," she murmured. She couldn't help but hold on to a glimmer of hope before Zen's soul had been torn to pieces, even though it was so slim. The holy beings outside the Time-Sea Forbidden Land focused on those consummate true gods most of the time, but the incident in the valley caught their attentions again. "That young man is going to die in the hands of the soul-killing ghosts," whispered a holy being. Nicholas remained calm. Even though he wanted to take Zen as his disciple, such a thing had always depended on fate. The female leader of the sun-blind race didn't allow holy beings to enter the Time-Sea Forbidden Land, so Nicholas couldn't save Zen. "It's indeed a pity," he sighed. On the other hand, Joy was staring at Zen with a seriousness and a vague sadness in her eyes. She didn't believe that he would die just like that. Zen's soul rapidly fell down, and then he saw the soul-killing ghosts crawl on the ground and surround him. Those soul-killing ghosts were souls that did not even hide their greedy auras at all. They opened their big mouths wide and couldn't wait to tear him to pieces. "Is there no other choice?" He groaned quietly. His heart couldn't help but feel heavy. Suddenly, the surface of his soul suddenly burst out golden lights, which turned into golden sword shadows and spun around his soul. His soul had grown significantly ever since he had cultivated the evolutionary divine arts in the universe. Furthermore, his soul strength was on par with that of a true god even when he was only a proving godly warrior. After he was promoted to a low-rank true god, his soul had greatly improved. Besides, the emotion-closing godly way had everything to do with the soul. As his soul became stronger, he had comprehended the most crucial move, the ripping consciousness of the emotion-closing godly way. Thus, it could be said that his soul had also gone through the training of the emotion-closing godly way. If he used it without careful consideration, the other true gods would discover his secret. Thus, Zen rarely used his soul power after entering the divine land. In the heavenly Han house, he had used his soul power alone, but hadn't activated the golden sword shadows on the surface of his soul. In addition, it wasn't a good idea to trigger the emotion-closing godly way in the Time-Sea Forbidden Land. It was a forbidden skill, so it was destined to be a godly way that nobody was allowed to practice. Now, he didn't know if those holy beings would let him go when they saw his situation. Zen, however, had no choice at all when he came to such a situation. The only thing he could do was to live first. At that moment, the golden sword shadows appeared and emitted rays of golden light that scattered in all directions. Although the golden light belonged to the soul power, it was so strong that it could even flatten a mountain back when Zen was still in the universe. Now that his cultivation base had increased, it was even more powerful now. The soul-killing ghosts that came from various directions were already about to bite his soul, but the golden lights had turned into arrow-shaped offensive forces and violently flew everywhere before they could even open their mouths. Chapter 1931. The Forbidden Godly Way. The arrows formed from Zen's soul pressure were extremely sharp. In fact, Zen's current cultivation base was so powerful that the small arrows transformed from his soul pressure could probably cut and injure some of the low-rank true gods. The soul was far weaker than the physical body, so if the low-rank true gods could get injured, there was no way the soul-killing ghosts would be able to survive the arrows. In the blink of an eye, the soul-killing ghosts that were closest to Zen were pierced by the many small arrows from his soul pressure and suffered torture. Zen's soul arrows shot out in all directions, some of them reaching up to several thousand feet. But since Zen was in his soul form now, no one could see the arrows except for the soul-killing ghosts and Nelly. The other true gods could only sense Zen's location with their spiritual perception and notice the extremely sharp and powerful soul pressure that was emanating from where Zen was. Whoosh, whoosh, some of the small soul arrows pierced right through the soul-killing ghosts and continued flying toward the stump below the goddess statue. Reginald gently reached out and blocked the arrows with his broad hand. Unexpectedly, he heard a muffled sound. Although these soul arrows hadn't hurt him, the power they had emitted shocked him. Is this the soul pressure released by Thad? It's so powerful. Other than Reginald, a few other true gods were also hit by the soul arrows. However, since they had already been flying for a few seconds, they had lost most of their power and did not hurt anyone. But the soul-killing ghosts crawling on the ground below were in trouble. Countless arrows shot toward them before they even had time to dodge, killing them instantly. Nelly's soul, which was in the crutches of the soul-killing ghosts, was curling up. At this moment, Nelly's mind was blank and she could barely remember anything from her life. All she knew was that she didn't want to die here. She still wanted to become the Mu clan's top warrior and as excellent as Rochelle, who she had always looked up to as an example. She was confident that she could do it because she was just as talented as Rochelle. Unfortunately, she would lose everything once her soul shattered. A wave of indescribable pain spread over her, making her feel like her soul was being torn into pieces. It was really miserable that she had to die such a painful death. However, just as she felt the darkness enveloping her, she sensed a strong soul pressure quickly approaching her. Whoosh, the soul-killing ghosts which were devouring her soul were pierced by the arrows. Whoosh, 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 the soul arrows pierced all the soul-killing ghosts around her, causing them to transform into traces of pure soul force that floated aimlessly behind her. After the soul-killing ghosts were destroyed, Nelly's soul struggled to get up. She wondered where the powerful soul force that had just saved her had come from. When she turned around in curiosity and gratitude, she saw a soul shining with golden light. Golden sword shadows were continuously revolving around that soul. Every time that golden light flashed, soul arrows shot toward her. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. More and more soul-killing ghosts around her were destroyed. At last, Nelly's soul was safe and sound. Thad Luo. After staring at the golden soul for a long time, Nelly gradually came back to her senses and recognized Zen. She had never expected that Zen's soul could be so powerful. As far as she knew, even the soul pressure of a top-rank true god couldn't be this strong. That was why all the top-rank true gods in the valley had chosen to escape. How could Thad's soul pressure be so powerful? The golden soul slowly approached Nelly's while continuously shooting the soul arrows. Then, Zen lifted her up from the ground and dragged her to her physical body. Her soul had been torn and injured by the soul-killing ghosts, but it was nothing serious. Once her soul was close enough to her physical body, it returned to her mind in a flash. Zen was not willing to remain in the soul state either. Now that the soul-killing ghosts had been dealt with, he quickly returned to his mind. When he opened his eyes once again glowed with a golden light. Since the emotion-closing godly way had been revealed, he had no scruples anymore. Killing soul-killing ghosts could strengthen his soul power quickly and by a large amount, so he had decided that it was worth the risk of revealing the emotion-closing godly way. In fact, many of the warriors who had run to the tree stump had used the power of thunder and lightning to kill the soul-killing ghosts for the same reason, that it would strengthen their soul power. Everyone had wanted to seize this opportunity. However, since they had been far away from the soul-killing ghosts, none of them had managed to kill nearly as many soul-killing ghosts as Zen had. Anyway, Zen was a unique case. Any soul-killing ghost that was within his line of sight was shot and killed. The soul-killing ghosts were unusually agile. Crawling on the ground, they fled in all directions since they realized that they were no match for Zen. However, this valley was not that large, so they had nowhere to escape. Unexpectedly, Zen began to chase them. The holy beings outside the time-sea forbidden land all focused their eyes on Zen with a mixture of emotions flashing through them. It seems that this little guy has cultivated the emotion-closing godly way, the Li clan's holy being said nonchalantly. Yes, the only way to strengthen the soul pressure to this extent is to use the emotion-closing godly way, another demi-holy being said, nodding. The emotion-closing godly way is a forbidden godly way. Its godly way tablet was sealed away more than 100 divine eras ago. In addition, all the true gods who cultivated it were annihilated. Even counterfeit tablets of the emotion-closing godly way don't exist anymore. How did this guy cultivate the emotion-closing godly way? The holy being of the Fang clan was bewildered. Nicholas also frowned. This little fellow has never used the emotion-closing godly way before, and I have never noticed the internal momentum of the emotion-closing godly way from him. Could it be that he just inadvertently obtained the soul cultivation method of the emotion-closing godly way? You were right, maybe his cultivation method is separate from the emotion-closing godly way, and even he has no idea of it. Samuel pitched in with the discussion. I don't think so, Clark said with a sarcastic laugh. He probably didn't use the emotion-closing godly way before because he knows that it is forbidden. Just now, he passively used the emotion-closing godly way to circulate his soul force and kill the soul-killing ghosts because he was in a desperate situation. He was forced to do that in order to survive. Who knows which level of the emotion-closing godly way he has reached? Nicholas nodded, but he didn't look fully convinced. After he comes out, we have to ask him to explain this matter. It wasn't because a low-rank true god had cultivated the emotion-closing godly way that the holy beings felt threatened. The emotion-closing godly way had long been regarded as a forbidden godly way. Everyone in the Hall of Holy Beings knew and accepted that. No one was allowed to cultivate this godly way. However, even if Zen had really cultivated the emotion-closing godly way, it wouldn't be a big problem in Nicholas's eyes. After all, Nicholas was the one who had banned anyone from cultivating it. If he were to take Zen as a disciple, he would be able to remove Zen's emotion-closing godly way, or even erase his memory of it. Now, the most important thing that Nicholas wanted to know was where Zen had learned the emotion-closing godly way. Chapter 1932, Withdrawal. The emotion-closing godly way had already disappeared in the divine land for over 100 divine eras. Even though a true god had a lifespan that couldn't expire, 100 or so divine eras was still way too long. Despite the fact that these true gods in the valley knew the existence of the emotion-closing godly way, and more importantly that it was forbidden, they had never seen it before. In recent years, only when Sword Chen fled to the Abyss Demon region did people ever hear about the emotion-closing godly way again. It was otherwise a pretty full dead topic. Though that event wasn't sensational, many true gods were aware of it. However, no one had seen Sword Chen again since he had fled into the Abyss Demon region. In other words, the matter eventually blew over and no one really thought about it anymore. With the use of the evolutionary divine arts, Zen had greatly increased his soul power and now, he displayed an extremely powerful soul pressure when using the emotion-closing godly way. Needless to say, the true gods were all stunned. Prior to this occurrence, most of the true gods were still worried that even if they fled to the goddess statue, the soul-killing ghosts would eventually catch up. In fact, the true gods who had mastered the godly ways that were related to the thunder had been unable to kill these soul-killing ghosts. It was possible that they had taken for granted that, other than the top-ranked true gods, everyone else would be killed. Unexpectedly, Zen, who was working alone, chased a large group of soul-killing ghosts. Is this guy really just a low-rank true god? One of them spoke out. Standing in a daze, a mid-rank true god stared at Zen, who was running wildly through the valley after those soul-killing ghosts. According to this mid-rank true god's perception, Zen was quickly catching and killing off all the ghosts. So much so that it even looked like he had entered an empty area. Langston looked at Zen in the distance, with his eyelids twitching rhythmically. Even though he was unwilling to admit it, this guy was still much stronger than he had ever allowed himself to believe. After Nellie's soul returned to her original body, she quickly climbed onto the huge stump. Seeing Zen chasing those soul-killing ghosts in such a ferocious way made her heart fall, and she was amazed. That guy, even his soul is much stronger than I have imagined, she thought to herself. There was no emotion in Zen's eyes. As the golden light continued to flash, his soul pressure transformed itself into a rain of arrows that shot out and downward. The soul-killing ghosts relentlessly crawled on the ground. At last, Zen crushed them and turned their remnants into pure soul power, which continually entered his body and strengthened his own soul. Although a few true gods standing on the stump released lightning that attacked certain soul-killing ghosts that were falling behind, the majority of them were killed by Zen. For this reason, Zen had absorbed a massive amount of soul force. His soul was inevitably rapidly growing stronger. Once Zen had killed the very last soul-killing ghost, he went directly back to the goddess statue. It was only when Zen had terminated his rampage that the true gods on the stump jumped off, one after another. Many of the true gods still felt very scared. Not far off in the distance, a few true gods could be seen standing or lying on the ground, motionlessly. These true gods' souls had been dug out from their bodies and torn to pieces. Hence, all they could do was stand there like statues. Since their souls had been extracted only a while ago, the vitality within their bodies had not quite been cut off yet. However, they had already turned into zombies, losing their own consciousness, which was equivalent to death. "Brother," a true god holding a statue called out, with a mournful expression on his face. Many of the true gods came from the floating island of the same large clan and had blood relationship with each other. As their eyes fell upon the scene before them, it was only normal that they felt extremely sad. Reginald shook his head and sighed mournfully. "Transport these corpses directly out the star door." "They aren't corpses," a true god retorted loudly. Reginald simply shrugged his shoulders. In fact, to ascertain whether or not a true god had died, the most important thing was verifying if their soul had been killed. Even if a true god's body had turned into pieces, as long as their soul remained intact, there would eventually be a chance for them to come back to life. If their soul vanished, though, that was another story, and they were truly hopeless. The true gods cleared up the scene quickly and carried those bodies out the star door. It was suddenly very quiet in the valley, and most of the true gods kept silent. No one dared speak in such a sad moment. The majority of the true gods obtained no substantial benefit from resisting the soul-killing ghosts' attacks. They didn't even receive a divine might coin from doing so. The only ones that had gained benefit from this were the true gods who had killed soul-killing ghosts. Their soul force, like Zen's, had grown quite a lot, too. Of course, among them all, Zen was the one whose strength had grown the most. He had killed more than 3/4 of the soul-killing ghosts on his own, and continued to retrieve their pure and precious soul power. It was only expected that his soul strength would grow significantly. From Zen's mind, Master Evil was staring blankly at Zen's soul. After the death of Master Evil's physical body, he had seen Zen use those small soul arrows to tear apart Yorik's soul. At the time, Zen had only been a proven godly warrior, and yet, he had broken a mid-rank true god soul. Now, though, Zen's soul was fuller and stronger after having absorbed so much soul power. A glimmer of glazed light could be seen shining on the surface of his soul. Although Zen hadn't released any soul pressure now, the aura hidden in his soul caused Master Evil to feel an invisible pressure. "Zen, your soul seems to be getting closer and closer to that of a consummate true gods. Is it about to become the soul of light?" Master Evil couldn't stop himself from asking this question. The soul of light, Zen wondered. Master Evil nodded and replied, "The soul of a consummate true god is called the soul of light. If a true god wanted to reach the consummation of true god realm, they had to grasp the consummate theurgy of a godly way. The 7th stage of each godly way was very powerful, and thus, a consummate true god's combat power would be enhanced to a level higher than that of a top-ranked true god. Nevertheless, a consummate true god still experienced certain weaknesses, in both soul and body. Certain true gods would try to make up for these two shortcomings after they had reached the consummation of true god realm. They would cultivate in order to form 9 divine stars, which meant the consummation of their physical body. When their soul became the soul of light, it was considered as their soul's consummation. It is said that after becoming the soul of light, one's soul will change from dark to light, as if it was experiencing rebirth. Such a soul doesn't fear lightning or any method of exorcism, for that matter, Master Evil added. Even a true God soul was still a soul of darkness. It came down to the same thing as the evil spirits and ghost souls. They were all considered souls of darkness, and such souls were extremely fragile. If lightning got into the mind of a true God with such a soul, the soul would still be severely damaged. In addition, this kind of soul could be wiped out through a specific purifying theurgy. However, once one's soul became a soul of light, the soul would go through significant change. Just as Master Evil had said, a soul of light was like a newborn body, and thus, it wasn't yet terribly afraid of the power from thunder and lightning. In fact, once it escaped the brain, the soul could be even seen with the naked eye. So that's how it's going to be, Zen said as he nodded his head briskly. After absorbing the soul power, he did feel that his soul had an unprecedented sense of fulfillment. The void that had been gradually emitting from his soul dissipated, as if all of a sudden, his soul had become a substance. I wonder how I would feel if my soul were to become a soul of light. He thought to himself, if I activate the emotion-closing godly way with the soul of light, will the unleashed soul pressure be even more powerful? He continued wondering. As he thought this over, Zen felt a little pity. He had killed all the soul-killing ghosts. If only there were another final group of them, wouldn't that be great? Rumble. At the exact moment, the valley began to shake once again, and the sixth wave of fierce beasts began to attack. Simultaneously, the true gods who had, until then, maintained their silence were also in a tumult. I'm not going to defend this round. One of them shouted. Even if the supreme treasure of belief appears, I don't want anything to do with this anymore. If I keep on fighting, I'm just looking for death, someone else added. If you still want to fight, I'm sorry that I can't keep you company. Another true god agreed. The soul-killing ghosts had already taken the lives of dozens of true gods, but the survivors had gained nothing from it. It was only inevitable that they wanted to retreat. They all left through the star door without hesitation. Their only intention now was to save their lives. In the blink of an eye, more than half of the 300 true gods were gone. There were only 70, maybe 80 true gods that had stayed behind. What do we do now? Do we defend? Soren asked calmly. Reginald looked at the 4 entrances located at the end of the valley. A bitter smile was plastered on his face. I don't think we can. There are too few of us. We are outnumbered by the beasts. We can't take them on. Following Reginald's gaze, the other true gods looked in the same direction and saw huge golden turtles slowly crawling out from all directions. Their thick limbs stomped on the ground, leaving behind numerous circular pits. Despite crawling very slowly, there were too many of them to count. Golden shell turtles, Soren confirmed, shaking his head expressionlessly. They are the 4th grade beasts in the Everest Spirit Mountain. They're strong enough to rebound attacks. In the end, we really can't deal with this kind of beast right now. Let's go, Bevan stated without second thought. Since they couldn't deal with the coming beasts, the only remaining choice for them now was to retreat, just like the others did earlier. Seeing as the other top-ranked true gods had all made their decisions, the true gods from the Han clan, the Mu clan and other clans sitting on the fence, didn't hesitate any longer. A look of regret spread across Reginald's face. He could only shake his head and walk solemnly toward the star door. It was at that exact moment, though, that the light in the center of the star door began to ripple slightly. Barely noticeable, but it did. In a panic, a low-ranked true god rushed out from the star door. His face was filled with fear, and he was moving very fast. He collided with Reginald at once. Chapter 1933. Inside and outside the star door. The true god rushed out in absolute panic, an extremely terrified expression on his face. Even a soul-killing ghost couldn't have caused such fear in a true god. What could he have possibly seen on the other side of the star door? What's up? Something wrong? Reginald asked curiously. Outside, the true god faltered, pointing at the star door. Paralyzed by extreme fear, he couldn't even find the words to speak clearly anymore. All of a sudden, the star door began to glow and more true gods rushed back in from the star door. The true gods returning from the outside of the valley looked as though they had found something completely unimaginable outside the valley. What happened? Reginald asked again, more seriously this time. Out there, there's a monster. Another true god said in a trembling voice. One after another, the true gods came back from the star door. No more than 30 seconds later, half of the 200 true gods who had left earlier were all back, huddling in a group. Ah, This time, a burly top-ranked true god rushed in from the star door and roared, "It's coming! Run! The monster is coming!" The burly top-ranked true god was from the Xie clan. His previous performance had also been quite impressive. He was a fearless man. Even when he encountered the soul-killing ghosts, he hadn't hesitated to kill many of them with his thunder halberd. Now though, it was almost as though he was someone else. He looked scared to death. Just as he finished speaking, Zen's eyes noticed a movement coming from the star door. He looked over just as a strange claw stretched out of it. It was a three-toed claw. Each of the toes had a black nail. Once the claw had stretched its way out through the star door, it gripped onto the Xie clan's top-ranked true god, as if clawing at an ant, before dragging him back toward the star door. "Cut the claw off," someone hurled. Reginald's face darkened. Before the person could finish screaming, he had already made his move. Besides him, the other top-ranked true gods were equally taking action and making their moves. Zen's eyes flashed. The Buddha Emperor's sword in his hand was like an invisible fish, and it condensed itself in the blink of an eye before charging toward the claw. Bang, 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 clang, 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 bang, hammers, swords, axes and many other kinds of terrifying weapons swung together at the claw. Every single true god present launched their attack and ruthlessly slashed at the giant claw. Without wavering in the slightest, Zen's Buddha Emperor's sword hit the claw straight on. After this round of attacks, the giant claw that had stretched through the star door hadn't been harmed in the least. Unbelievable. Help, no, kill me, please, just kill me, the Xie clan's top-ranked true god shouted in despair. His eyes were full of fear as he cried out in pain. He clawed at the soil and left several fingerprints on the ground. Clearly, to him, being dragged back into the star door was more terrifying than being killed right here, right now. Despite his begging, no true god present was willing to kill him. Instead, they only watched him disappear into the other side of the star door. "What the heck just happened? What is that?" Reginald asked loudly, his voice trembling somewhat. One of the true gods who had returned from the outside of the valley quickly said, "Let's talk about it later. Pascal, quickly take the star door down. Do it now." A look of hesitation etched itself on Pascal's face. The star door could only be activated once. Although he could indeed close the star door and put it away, the star door itself would be rendered completely useless and he wouldn't ever be capable of activating it again. Around them, the golden shell turtles in the valley continued slowly crawling toward the true gods. If he put away the star door now, wouldn't they lose their only escape? How would they leave this valley, then? On the other hand, that claw must have come from an extremely powerful monster. Even if they wanted to escape from the star door, they'd have no choice but to eventually face that thing. As Pascal stood motionless in hesitation, the center of the azure star door began rippling with luminosity, like a lake. "Be careful, everyone, something is about to appear again." All the true gods scattered in every direction, trying their best to distance themselves from the star door. From their new position, they stared at the star door through squinting, fearful eyes. Whoosh! It was a true god that suddenly rushed in from the star door. The true god, dressed in a blood-red robe, dashed so fast that no one could see the person's face clearly, not even Zen, Reginald, or Soren. The true god had run in sideways, and with great momentum. In order to slow down and decrease her impact, she flipped into a somersault in midair, and both the weapons in her hands plowed 2 ditches on the ground as she landed. Finally, she stopped at the edge of the valley. Fortunately, she bumped into a golden shell turtle who broke her momentum, allowing her to slow down and stand up. "Rochelle," Nellie shouted, her face full of surprise. The woman that came through the star door this time was Rochelle, the consummate true god of the Mu clan. At that moment, Rochelle was in a very sorry state. A section of hair on the top of her head had been cut. The remaining half of her disheveled hair fell down to one side, and there was a little mud on her forehead. Even in such a messy condition, she still looked utterly beautiful. Rochelle nodded at her briefly, but she didn't have time for small talk, as a golden shell turtle had already started to attack her from behind. Rochelle was a consummate true god, after all. Sensing the attack before it began, she didn't even have to turn her head. In her hand, she swiveled the short scimitar. Immediately, a scarlet beam of light whistled toward the turtle. Phew! Although the golden shell turtle's armor was thick, it failed to resist Rochelle's slash and the turtle was sliced directly in half. Although the golden shell turtle was obviously killed, a faint white curtain of light appeared on the turtle's surface just as it was hit by the scimitar. A scarlet beam of light bounced back from the light curtain and precipitated toward Rochelle. Phew! In a blink, the scarlet beam of light landed on Rochelle's back before she even had the chance to react. The power of this strike was just the one Rochelle had just launched herself. Rochelle was a consummate true god, and even a casual strike from her was extremely powerful. The scarlet beam of light bounced directly onto her back and left an open, bloody wound. Several of her ribs had even broken with a vigorous snap. She bent down in pain and couldn't help but let out a loud groan. It was then that she looked behind her, and Rochelle couldn't believe her eyes. "Why are there even golden shell turtles here?" she asked angrily. The golden shell turtle's shell could bounce back any attacks it received. Rochelle had been too confident in herself. When she rushed in from the star door just moments ago, she didn't have much time to verify what kind of beast she was dealing with. Her first impression was that these beasts weren't even worth mentioning, and she paid a heavy price for her careless. Seeing that the other golden shell turtles were also slowly crawling toward her, she endured the pain in her back and gently leapt up. With a flash, she arrived at the bottom of the goddess statue and sat down. She leaned against the tree block below the goddess statue dejectedly. Then, she gently drew a small circle in the void with her right hand, and a scarlet golden pill fell from the circle. She gently stretched her fingers out in order to grasp the golden pill. With a flick, the golden pill drew a parabola in the air and fell directly into her mouth. After swallowing the pill, her original tired face recovered greatly. Nellie, who had been silent beside her, asked with concern, "Rochelle, what happened out there? Can you tell me?" The consummate true gods didn't care about the rewards in the first stage or even the second stage of the Time Sea Forbidden Land. However, many years ago, even the consummate true gods had to fight their way in order to go to the higher stages of the Forbidden Land, together with ordinary true gods. In other words, they still had to endure the attacks from waves of beasts beneath the goddess statue before they obtained the qualifications needed to reach the second stage. Later, a consummate true god found a space crack in the Time Sea Forbidden Land out of pure luck. If one used spatial transference, one could enter the second and even the third stages through the space crack. This was a shortcut that only the consummate true gods could take. As a result, the consummate true gods no longer explored along with the ordinary true gods. After entering the Time Sea, all of the consummate true gods would enter the third stage directly. It had never occurred to Rochelle and the other consummate true gods that the difficulty of exploring the Time Sea Forbidden Land had greatly increased. Now, they had provoked an extremely powerful monster on the third stage of the Time Sea Forbidden Land. The strength of these consummate true gods was also extremely great. They wanted to kill the monster, of course, but if they fought with the monster on the third stage of the Forbidden Area, they would alert other powerful creatures. After discussion, they decided to lure the monster to the first stage of the Forbidden Area instead. Therefore, they fought while withdrawing along the space crack. Unexpectedly, as soon as the consummate true gods retreated, they came into direct contact with more than 200 of the other true gods who had just withdrawn from the valley through the star door. Chapter 1934. Hiding in the Valley. More than 200 true gods who had left the valley were totally oblivious as to what was happening with the consummate true gods. All they wanted was to leave the Forbidden Area. But if they were to follow the path they had taken earlier, they'd probably run into those time ghosts again. Thus, they had to find a different route. They didn't expect to see a group of consummate true gods suddenly appear just as they came out of the star door. Some of the true gods were overwhelmed when they saw the consummate true gods. They thought that with consummate true gods by their side, leaving the Time Sea Forbidden Land was a piece of cake. However, they were shocked to find that all the consummate true gods were either injured or exhausted. It looked as if they had been in a fierce battle. Then the huge monster was seen on the first stage of the Forbidden Area. Some true gods with lightning reflexes rushed through the star door and returned to the valley. The first one to reach the valley collided with Reginald. The top-ranked true god of the Xie clan entered the star door and considered himself quite unlucky as he was being targeted by the monster. Even if the true god had rushed through the star door, he was still caught by the enormous monster. Boom, boom. Before Rochelle could reply to her sister, the outskirts of the valley shook violently and the sound of an explosion was heard, much to everyone's discomfort. She glanced at the east of the valley. They are still busy fighting the monster. And they'll be escaping into the valley soon. Then she pondered for a moment and added, "Who possesses the star door?" "I do," Pascal answered, stepping forward. "Give me the scroll," Rochelle ordered. Pascal didn't like Rochelle's tone one bit. However, she was a consummate true god and he couldn't fight her. Thus, he sulkily handed her the scroll. It's likely that they won't be able to defeat the fierce monster. Therefore, when they escape into the valley, I'll close the star door so that the monster wouldn't be able to enter, Rochelle said. The true gods finally understood what was happening. These consummate true gods had provoked an extremely powerful monster and were unable to kill it. Thus, they had to escape through the star door to the valley. The true gods wore an unimpressed expression on their faces. Since their path of leaving the valley was destroyed, they weren't quite sure of what to do next. They were stuck in the valley. Zen leaned on the side of the tree block and observed the turtles which were crawling towards them from a distance. Dealing with these golden shell turtles is the most important thing right now, isn't it? He suggested. The star door had become a dead end, and these golden shell turtles came towards them from all the directions. Although they were slow, they'd be able to catch up with them nonetheless. The true gods were unsure as to what to do. They became alert when Zen reminded them. Some of the true gods felt like weeping, as they still had to deal with the ferocious beasts in the valley. Howl. As soon as Zen finished speaking, a furious roar was heard from the outside of the valley. Then a blazing fire was seen outside the entrance in the east of the valley. You go in first, I'll cover you. Someone shouted. Although the person was quite far, Zen and the rest heard him clearly. Buzz. The consummate true gods rushed in one after the other through the center of the star door. Within seconds, dozens of consummate true gods were in the valley. Father. Kelsey looked over her shoulder and saw a man who was badly burnt. One of the consummate true gods was none other than Alfredo, the head of the Han clan. Sir. Pascal and Elena greeted him. Like Rochelle, these consummate true gods looked hurt. However, they weren't breathing heavily, and they had a spark of determination in their eyes. They didn't seem to be seriously injured. These consummate true gods were either the heads or leading roles of the powerful clans on the floating islands, like Rochelle. The true gods seemed much calmer than before as they joined the consummate true gods of their respective clans. Rochelle, you coward, you were the only one who ran away from the battle. You almost had us killed, Walton shouted in a fit of anger. Rochelle remained calm and said, it's common sense, Walton. If the monster goes berserk, you have to retreat. You really shouldn't have left us there. A man dressed in white and holding a paper fan also contributed to the discussion. He was none other than Shan, the consummate true god of the Fang clan. If you hadn't left and we had tried a little bit more, we might have been able to kill the monster, another consummate true god pitched in. He was the consummate true god of the Sword clan. Watching everyone make her the scapegoat, Rochelle rolled her eyes and didn't bat an eye. She counted the number of people present, making sure that no consummate true god was left behind. Then she walked towards the star door with Pascal's scroll in her hands. Just as she walked up to the star door, the center of the star door began to shake again and the black three-toed claw thrust through the star door again. Humph, not this again, Rochelle snorted. Her eyes burning with rage, she pulled out a sword and slashed at the three-toed claw. The three-toed claw had pulled the true god of the Xie clan out through the star door. Even Zen and other true gods weren't able to do anything. But Rochelle's sword cut a deep wound in the sharp claw. The wound was so deep that even the bone was visible. The claw couldn't withhold Rochelle's attack and was seen retreating through the star door. Rochelle then gently waved the scroll and the star door disappeared completely. At the same time, the scroll also turned into small pieces, completely dissipating. Howl, howl, boom, boom. At the same time, they heard a roar coming from the entrance in the east of the valley. A huge monster was pounding on the light curtain. But the light curtain didn't cave in and the monster was unable to enter the valley. Rochelle looked at the monster and said, it's still in the stage of madness. We can hide in the valley for a while, and we can kill it after it has cooled down. Hide in the valley for a while. A tall consummate true god threw a look at the golden shell turtles which weren't far away. It's not easy to deal with these golden shell turtles, you know. It was quite easy for the consummate true gods to fight against the abyss demons and soul-killing ghosts. Some consummate true gods were able to kill the abyss demons solely alone. The soul-killing ghosts were much easier to deal with. The souls of some consummate true gods had reached consummation too and had become souls of light. If one's soul was really hooked out by a soul-killing ghost, they could crush the soul-killing ghost by using their soul. But the golden shell turtles were something else and were quite troublesome. The golden shell turtles were able to reflect almost all the attacks with their shells. The stronger one attacked a golden shell turtle, the stronger it would bounce back the attack. It's not that difficult. I have killed loads of these in the Everest Spirit Mountain, a consummate true god of the Zhao clan said, walking towards the golden shell turtles with a golden saber in his hand. According to him, the golden shell turtles were annoying, but they could be dealt with easily. With the presence of the consummate true gods in their midst, the true gods such as Reginald, Soren and Pascal all calmed down. However, once they passed the trial of the goddess statue, the light curtain that isolated the valley would disappear, and the monster outside would be able to enter the valley. Thus, they'd have to deal with it as well. Everyone knew that it was essential to be prepared for the monster. While the true gods were pondering over the ongoing situation, the consummate true god of the Zhao clan had already waved his large saber towards the golden shell turtles. This man from the Zhao clan was Nailor Zhao. He was a powerful man, and thus, he could easily deal with the golden shell turtles. With one strike of his saber, he killed 3 golden shell turtles. But suddenly, a white light curtain appeared from each of the golden shell turtles' shells, shot back the blade lights and bounced back Nailor Zhao's attack. Puff, puff, puff. The blade lights weren't enough to cause him any harm. Thus, he didn't try to dodge them. After Nailor Zhao killed the golden shell turtles, 3 balls of blood-red fog arose from the bodies of the golden shell turtles, and strong power of blood energy suddenly penetrated his body. Other consummate true gods stood still under the goddess statue and didn't move. Now that they had already reached the current cultivation base, they weren't interested in any ordinary reward. However, they were in awe when they watched what Nailor Zhao got. Zen's eyes flashed when he saw the blood energy. Chapter 1935, Bounce and Copy. The souls, the godly ways, and the strength could be refined to consummation, which was the limit of true God's power. Once a true God had cultivated 9 divine stars, they could continue to accumulate the strength source. The soul, on the contrary, was hard to make progress on after one achieved the soul of light. The godly ways were standards to figure out whether or not one had become a consummate true God. If one wanted to become stronger after breaking through, their only hope would be the thirties beyond the godly ways. The blood energy, however, could be infinitely absorbed. The bodies of consummate true gods were exceptionally strong, and the blood energy they contained was far stronger than that of ordinary true gods. But it was very difficult to recover their bodies using only their own blood energy. For example, Rochelle paid a high price when she had to repair her wounds by taking the 7 times refined pill. The true gods could heal quickly without using pills, if their blood energy was strong enough. Therefore, the consummate true gods often scrambled for pills and methods to strengthen their blood energy. Several of them stood up one after another, intending to kill the golden shell turtles. The turtles' shells could send back all attacks in ricochets, but it was not a big deal for the consummate true gods. Zen had also noticed the blood energy. He had swallowed a 9-head snake blood pill in the fairy palace that had greatly increased his blood energy. However, his corporeal body was far stronger than those of the true gods of the same level. He had been a low-rank true god, but his blood energy was still not enough. As a vast majority of the true gods did not intend to make a move, Zen turned and began walking towards the golden shell turtles. Thump, thump, thump. In no time, the first golden shell turtle had found Zen and rushed towards him. But since it carried a heavy shell on its back, it was achingly slow even at its full speed. Threads of strength sources condensed before Zen's body and formed the Buddha Emperor sword. It then thrust towards the head of the golden shell turtle. Watching the invisible Buddha Emperor sword approaching it fiercely, the turtle retracted its head into the shell. Crack! The Buddha Emperor sword crashed onto the shell of the turtle, leaving a fist-sized crack. Zen didn't use his full strength. It was obviously impossible for him to kill a golden shell turtle with a single move like a consummate true god. But according to Zen's estimation, he could kill it with a few more strikes. As soon as his sword hit the turtle, a curtain of white light appeared on its shell, from which an invisible sword shadow shot out towards Zen. The Buddha Emperor sword had only gathered 35% of the strength source, but it was still a threat to Zen. If the sword were to hit Zen, he would at least be seriously injured, if not dead. In his desperation, Zen had no choice but to raise the Grand Sun sword to protect himself. Bang! With a dull sound, the two swords bumped into each other and vanished at the same time. The brat earned a great deal in the last round of killing the soul-killing ghosts. But he is still greedy. He was lucky enough to kill the soul-killing ghosts. I don't know what kind of secret skills he used then, but these golden shell turtles are not easy to deal with. Indeed, it's humiliating to fight like this. Some true gods thought Zen was making a fool of himself. But they had forgotten that the first targets of the soul-killing ghosts were the true gods, and then the goddess statue. If Zen didn't kill the soul-killing ghosts, they would ultimately climb up the tree stump. And then, apart from a few top-rank true gods who could escape by flying into the air, all other true gods would probably die. Seen from this perspective, Zen had saved most of the true gods. Some of the consummate true gods who hadn't joined in the fight also stared at Zen with great interest. They were eager to see how Zen would deal with the golden shell turtles. The golden shell turtle popped its head out and suddenly lunged towards Zen, intending to bite him. Zen gently twisted his body and dodged this bite easily. A smile appeared on his face as he brandished an invisible Buddha Emperor sword once again. The Buddha Emperor sword was still unable to cut off the golden shell turtle's head, and hit the shell again. The crack on the shell expanded. A white light flashed and an invisible sword shadow shot out of the light curtain. At this, Zen suddenly stretched out a hand. The parting water divine mirror. At his words, a transparent water curtain appeared in his hand. When he challenged Yulia, who was ranked 196th in the arena of legends, he absorbed her parting water godly way. He also took away her third beyond the parting water godly way, namely the parting water divine mirror. The parting water divine mirror and the shell of the turtle were similar. They both could cause the enemy's attack to ricochet back at them. There was a big difference between the two, despite their similar power. The shell of the golden shell turtle produced the same damage once it took in the opponent's attack, and then sent it back. It was a rare thurgy that belonged to the golden shell turtle. When Rochelle chopped the turtle shells with blade lights a while ago, the same blade lights appeared and shot back to her. But the parting water divine mirror was different. While the turtle shell copied the attacks it received, the mirror only reflected the attacks. Zen's Buddha Emperor sword didn't disappear after it reached the turtle shell. Instead, a second Buddha Emperor sword shot out of the turtle shell. Once the parting water divine mirror sent the second sword back, Zen was actually able to control it. This meant that Zen had a second Buddha Emperor sword without using his own strength source. 2 Buddha Emperor swords. Zen's eyes lit up as he became aware of something. He controlled his 2 swords to attack the golden shell turtle again. This time, 2 fist-sized cracks appeared on 2 sides of the turtle shell. Once the white light flashed on the shell, 2 more Buddha Emperor swords appeared from there. Once Zen reflected the 2 swords by the parting water divine mirror, he was able to control them. And then, Zen repeated this move several times. The Buddha Emperor sword in front of him multiplied from 1 into 2, 2 into 4, 4 into 8, 8 into 16 after a few copies. Walton, who was resting at the foot of the goddess statue, was still a little confused when he saw this scene, but a while later, his eyes opened wide in surprise. "Hey, Sean," Walton shouted, "it's strange. The parting water divine mirror is a unique thurgy beyond way of your clan, isn't it?" Reminded by Walton, Sean turned his attention to Zen. At first, he hadn't figured out what had happened. He had only noticed that Zen had the strength source by his side. But he was stunned when he finally saw it clearly. He's using the parting water divine mirror. Where did he learn it? I didn't expect it to work in this way, Sean said, having got a nasty shock on seeing this. By then, Zen had thrown 16 swords onto the shell of the golden shell turtle at a time. The shell exploded, and the turtle died, giving off a glimmer of blood energy that was absorbed by Zen's body. The broken shell shone with a white light, and 16 Buddha Emperor swords appeared from the light curtain, shooting towards him. Zen once again employed the parting water divine mirror to reflect them one by one. He then controlled the 16 swords. He was now controlling 32 Buddha Emperor swords. Zen was shocked at the swords thickly dotted in front of him. There were 32 Buddha Emperor swords in all. If Zen used them to attack a target, even a top-rank true god would be beaten to pieces. Once again, Zen gently waved his left hand and controlled 16 Buddha Emperor swords to attack a golden shell turtle on the other side. He then waved his right hand, and the other 16 Buddha Emperor swords also shot out. As the 2 golden shell turtles were immediately killed by the 32 Buddha Emperor swords, another 32 swords bounced back from their shells towards Zen. Zen took them under control after the parting water divine mirror had reflected them. By now, Zen had already controlled 64 Buddha Emperor swords. The swords gathered together, releasing the unique power of the strength source. Many of the consummate true gods could feel the great pressure. Chapter 1936, Kill him. Generally speaking, the golden shell turtles usually appeared in the most remote areas of the Everest Spirit Mountain. Because these beasts moved so slowly, very few true gods ever came to attack them. In the Fang clan, not many true gods specialized in the parting water godly way. Only 4 true gods, including Yulia, had mastered this thurgy beyond way called parting water divine mirror. And these few true gods had never encountered the golden shell turtles before. As for Sean, on the other hand, he had killed golden shell turtles in the Everest Spirit Mountain. That said, he didn't practice the parting water godly way, and thus, had no idea that the parting water divine mirror could have such an effect when encountering a golden shell turtle. The 64 Buddha Emperor swords continued swaying next to Zen, several of which began showing signs of instability. After all, Zen didn't have a purple power body. Although he had cultivated the purple or a godly way, he couldn't completely master the separate controlling. For this reason, Joy had only taught him the theurgy of controlling 4 swords. Although Zen had become a true god now, it was still difficult for him to control 64 Buddha Emperor swords all at once. Just combined together, Zen thought to himself. The 64 Buddha Emperor swords merged together in haste and changed from 64 swords to 4 huge swords. The strength, it's weakening so fast, Zen thought, and his gaze suddenly froze. His strength weakened quickly as it escaped his body. When Zen's Buddha Emperor sword was completely expulsed from his body, its strength source needed continuous replenishment through the cross-world theurgy in order for the Buddha Emperor sword's shape to be maintained. If he stopped replenishing the strength source, the Buddha Emperor sword would collapse in a very short period of time. The strength source that formed the 4 huge swords didn't come from Zen, but was the duplicate created by the golden shell turtles. The 4 huge swords were too large and needed so much strength source. Zen's strength source was unable to maintain their shapes and the 4 huge swords were rapidly weakening, like the melting ice and snow, right in front of Zen's eyes. Go, he shouted aloud. Before the 4 huge swords completely weakened, Zen controlled them and directed them to chop the 4 golden shell turtles not too far off. Puff! The 4 huge swords contained the power which was so astonishing that it was comparable to a strike coming from a consummate true god. The 4 golden shell turtles were instantly sliced in half. The 4 huge swords that belonged to Zen were rapidly weakening now. Despite that, the surface of the golden shell turtles flashed a screen of white light once again and the 4 swords were thrust from them. That's enough, Zen mumbled to himself faintly. Once he had successfully taken control of the 4 huge swords with the help of the parting water divine mirror, he had the chance to kill another 4 golden shell turtles before the swords became even weaker. By doing so, Zen killed the golden shell turtles in an efficient manner. Naylor, who was standing not far away from them, continued to swing his saber violently, killing off the golden shell turtles one by one. However, he had to bear their counterattack every time he killed a golden shell turtle. Although he was strong enough to withstand such with his body, he fell speechless in awe when he saw Zen killing the golden shell turtles with ease. Relying on his method, Zen's speed of killing the golden shell turtles far exceeded that of the other consummate true gods. Simultaneously, the strong blood energy poured into Zen's body. It's so hot, Zen cried out. The raging power of blood energy rolled and boiled in Zen's body, unceasingly fulfilling every single muscle and piece of flesh he had. Zen's action inevitably attracted the attention of many consummate true gods, as well as Rochelle's. Rochelle didn't kill the golden shell turtles, though. Instead, she leaned against the tree stump and closed her eyes in order to try and catch a little rest. She didn't open her eyes again until she heard the conversation between Walton and Sean. Her eyelids lifted and she stared at Zen indifferently. Before entering the Time-Sea Forbidden Land, Rochelle had told Nellie to pay close attention to Zen at all times. Is this guy really the anonymous man from the Han clan? Rochelle asked through the use of her life vitality. As Rochelle watched Zen control the illusory swords, she felt more and more certain that Zen really was the anonymous man. Nellie nodded and replied, yes, he really is. It seems that his real name isn't Thad Luo. I overheard LaQuisha calling him Zen by accident when she was anxious, so I suspect that Thad Luo is just his assumed name. The person who had paid the most attention to Zen in the valley was perhaps Nellie. After all, it was a task that her sister had asked her to perform. His surname is Luo, and his first name is Zen. Zen Luo. Rochelle's expression appeared playful as she pondered over this name. She then said flatly, a few days ago, I met our father. He mentioned the matter concerning the warriors who snuck into the divine land from the evolutionary universe. He told me that the second warrior entered the vast sky region. The vast sky region is the Han clan's territory, Nellie responded. In spite of her words, she still had no idea what Rochelle was trying to say. Rochelle twirled a strand of drooping hair with her index finger. The black, smooth hair circled a few times, forming a delicate spiral. She continued, with the Han clan's ability, it would have been impossible to train such a remarkable warrior in a short period of time. Besides, he's not a descendant of Han clan but an outsider with the surname, Luo. Rochelle continued brushing her hair as she watched Zen off in the distance. As she listened to Rochelle, Nellie suddenly understood the meaning of her sister's words. So you asked me to watch him not because you thought he's the anonymous man but because you suspected he was sent by Mike. That's impossible. It wouldn't really change much if Zen was the anonymous man. On the other hand, however, the situation would be very different if Zen had been sent by Mike, or even if he was from the evolutionary universe. If that was the case, he'd quickly become the Mu clan's sworn enemy and be eliminated. For some reason, Nellie suddenly felt a sense of panic take over her. She didn't want to believe her ears, and then she said, even though Zen is not a descendant of the Han clan, it doesn't mean that he comes from the evolutionary universe. After all, there are many people with the surname Luo in the world. There's still a small chance that there could be a talent or two, like Zen, appearing from an unknown clan. Rochelle looked at Nellie with strange, doubtful gaze. Father isn't completely sure, and neither am I. But there is another thing. Back in the arena of legends, Harold has unexpectedly said that except for the Moon clan, the Sword clan, the Han clan and the Jiyu clan, the other clans weren't even allowed to enter the Everest Spirit Mountain. According to our father's analysis, Harold must have known that someone had already arrived in the Han clan, and thus sent such a message to this person. That is to say, he spoke those words only to ask the warrior to travel to the Everest Spirit Mountain's Cloud Dragon Ravine. Coincidentally, the Han clan's anonymous man suddenly emerged. Do you still think this is a coincidence? There's at least an 80% possibility that the anonymous man was sent by Mike. Let's face it. As she spoke, Rochelle glanced at Nellie indifferently and asked in confusion, what are you so nervous about, anyway? Nellie's heart skipped a beat. She shook her head at once and said, you're right. His identity is suspicious, but we can't be completely sure that he belongs to Mike, either. Don't you know me better than that? Unexpectedly, Rochelle stood up with a tight smile on her lips and said, Mike is very powerful and crafty. He's good at laying out plans, and each of his chess pieces is of great use to him, and only him. But it's easy to break his plot. I'll kill each of his men one by one. As she finished speaking, Rochelle pulled out a short sword and looked at Zen, who was still killing the golden shell turtles in the distance. I'd rather kill him than let him go. Chapter 1937, Determined Identity. As she watched her sister walk toward Zen, Nellie couldn't help herself but feel suddenly uneasy. Despite the feelings that were overwhelming her, she agreed with her sister's analysis. She thought that her sister was doing the right thing in trying to eliminate the crisis in the cradle. Subconsciously, however, she still wanted to justify Zen. Zen didn't realize that danger was looming not far from him. He was getting better and better at killing the turtles. The power of blood energy provided by killing these golden shell turtles was coveted, even by a few of the consummate true gods. It was quite an amazing tonic for Zen, and the blood energy in his body benefited from a clear qualitative improvement. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. After chopping the 4 golden shell turtles in half, the 4 huge swords grew weaker than ever before, and dispersed at once. Not even a few seconds later, the 4 golden turtles were already sending the 4 swords back at Zen. At that very moment, a cold voice sounded behind Zen. I heard that you have 2 names. One is Thad Luo, and the other is Zen Luo, the voice asked. Zen's eyebrows furrowed slightly as he heard these words. He didn't turn around, but continued to concentrate on controlling the 4 huge swords, in an attempt to kill the golden shell turtles, as if he had no ears. As the others noticed the scene, all the true gods standing under the goddess statue glanced at each other in confusion. As she too heard the voice, Laquisha turned pale, and Elena's nerves felt like they were taking over her. Kelsey, on the other hand, had no idea what was being said. She whispered curiously, Laquisha, who is Zen Luo? Among the 3 girls of the Han clan, she was the only one who didn't know Zen's true identity. Sensing something was wrong, Alfredo turned to his daughter Kelsey and scolded, don't ask about what doesn't concern you. Being scolded by her father, Kelsey pouted and stopped speaking immediately. Now, Laquisha felt deeply remorseful. She had inadvertently called out Zen's name, but no one mentioned it afterwards. She thought that no one had noticed her mistake since the name, Zen, wasn't very well known in the Divine Land. At that time, the consummate true gods, including Rochelle, hadn't entered the valley just yet. Presumably, it could only have been Nellie who informed Rochelle. Of course, Laquisha didn't know that Nellie had been paying close attention to Zen this whole time, and she wasn't one to miss out on a single detail. As her deft fingers gently fiddled with it, Rochelle's short sword spun back and forth in her hand. She continued, the name is nothing more than a symbol. It doesn't matter. The most important thing is that you're not a member of the Divine Land, but from the evolutionary universe, right? Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The 4 swords shattered more turtle shells once again. Zen pulled the air inward and a parting water divine mirror appeared. Zen had repeated this move dozens of times now. It was safe to say that he had become adept at it. He still had no response for Rochelle. Beneath the goddess statue stood many true gods, and a few consummate true gods wore odd expressions on their faces. What exactly is this crazy woman trying to do, again? Walton asked, a little confused. The fan in Sean's hand unfolded gently. He frowned and asked, the evolutionary universe. Ah, I see. She suspects that this guy was the stowaway who violated the ruling slate earlier. Sean was so smart that within a few seconds, he had figured the connection out. He had no idea, however, how Rochelle could have come to such a conclusion. Although she might be a little crazy, she wouldn't have just asked anyone such a question. There must have been a reason. You don't have to answer me. No matter how you defend yourself, I'll kill you, Rochelle said with a faint smile, as she stood behind Zen. Perhaps I've guessed your identity wrong. Therefore, as a compensation, I'll give you a chance to make the first move. As she finished phrase, she raised her head slightly and confidently. Her black unbound hair pulled itself back and tied itself together, making a ponytail, and giving her an even more vivacious look. When in a fight, she liked to tie it back, which was her way of symbolizing that she was about to make her move. The true gods present weren't blind, though. The 4 huge swords that moved back and forth between Zen and the turtles were extremely powerful. Moreover, they were even a big threat to the consummate true gods. If Zen attacked first, she was really giving him a chance. But did a low-rank true god really have any chances of winning in the face of a consummate true god? He's always being too cocky. He's going to die soon. Langston couldn't stop himself from laughing. To be honest, Zen's numerous performances in the Time Sea Forbidden Land had shocked him greatly. His wish for Zen's death was stronger than any other person, even than that of Rochelle. In the end, Rochelle was just helping the Mew clan and even the entire alliance of rich and powerful clans, in their attempt to kill Zen. She didn't hate Zen herself. LaQuisha glared at Langston in disgust. She clenched her hands and then stared at Zen, not knowing exactly how to help him resolve this current crisis. All you can do is sneer at him like a coward, but you don't dare challenge him head-on, do you? Elena couldn't help but retort angrily at Langston. Why not? Langston pulled a pouty face. Just shut up. Ha ha, sneered LaQuisha. Her laughter was full of contempt, which made Langston blush. In LaQuisha's eyes, the gap between Langston and Zen was much more than self-evident. It was at that very moment that a look of helplessness appeared on Soren's face. He didn't understand why Rochelle was getting Zen into so much trouble. All he could do was wonder why Zen, a person the Holy Emperor appreciated so much, had to be such trouble. Uncle, that guy was chosen by the Holy Emperor. Don't let Rochelle kill him, he whispered. Not far from Soren stood a middle-aged man dressed in brocade. His name was Troy and he was a consummate true god from the Dongfang clan. Was he really? Troy asked. In fact, he understood that Rochelle wanted to kill Zen because she suspected that he was a stowaway sent by Mike. Due to such, he had no desire to meddle in their business. On the other hand, the situation would have been different if the Holy Emperor had given the order. I received this order from the Holy Emperor, Soren replied in a matter-of-fact tone. How about we just wait and see? Troy frowned and replied. Rochelle stood no less than a few feet behind Zen, but her expression was careless. She watched Zen's back quietly, and was extremely patient. Although Zen allowed himself to kill the golden shell turtles at will, he still felt disturbed. Rochelle's demand was way too sudden. Originally, he hadn't thought that exposing his identity as the anonymous man would be so problematic. It had never occurred to him in the past that Rochelle had successfully guessed his true identity so easily. Judging from what she said, Rochelle still wasn't completely certain. That, though, definitely wasn't enough to stop her from killing him. What a cruel woman she was. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Once again, the 4 swords bounced immediately back from the golden shell turtles. Zen spun around on his heel and held out his hands. In the air, 2 huge swords flew toward each of his hands and then flew back outward. The strength source contained within these 4 swords was even stronger than that of a consummate true god. The swords were raging with ultimate power. The 4 swords flew toward Rochelle in an abrupt gust. The powerful strength source activated strong pressure and made her ponytail fly crazily at the back of her head. Instead of showing any fear on her face, she looked excited. I may have given you a chance, but it was also a test. Swish, she quickly jumped down using the tip of her toes and floated backward. Her slightly narrowed eyes revealed a cold smirk, and the short sword in her hand became blood red. If Zen chose to attack her directly, then his identity would 100% be determined, alas. Chapter 1938. No match for Rochelle. Zen finally spoke as he wielded the 4 swords with his mind. He shouted angrily, I know you just want to kill me. Don't try to give excuses. Everyone knows how unreasonable you are. I beat your sister in the arena of legends that day, so you're just standing up for her now. But don't you think trying to kill me is too much? And if you really want to kill me, then what option do I have other than to fight back? This was the most dangerous situation Zen had found himself in after entering the Divine Land. At this moment, countless ideas popped into his mind. If he just ruthlessly fought back, it would arouse everyone's suspicion of him and make it seem like Rochelle was right. If he merely stood there and argued with her, the results wouldn't be much different. She wasn't one to be swayed by words and would still try to kill him. However, he thought that if he argued while resisting her attacks, he might be able to turn the situation around. My sister. Just like Zen had expected, Rochelle froze. She didn't understand what Zen was talking about. Why was Nellie suddenly involved in this? I defeated Nellie and humiliated her. So being a narrow-minded woman, you are not willing to let me go, Zen continued. His words actually didn't make sense at all. Instead of refuting Rochelle's claims, he was attacking her with a ridiculous claim of his own. But the more he acted like this, the more convincing he was. Moreover, Rochelle was notorious for her narrow-mindedness. Even though her personality had nothing to do with her current accusation about Zen, the other true gods couldn't help but take it into account after hearing his words. More importantly, Zen had started fighting back. There was no time to logically think about the matter, and so they all subconsciously stood on Zen's side. If they thought about it carefully, they would realize that Zen was talking nonsense. But right now, most people believed that Rochelle had a crazy hidden agenda for trying to kill Zen. Even Nellie was a little confused after hearing Zen's words. She was indeed unhappy that she had been defeated by him. Like her sister, she was a very proud woman with a strong character. She couldn't let her sister teach Zen a lesson on her behalf. Father, Thad is not just a member of the Han clan, but he's also a genius. Rochelle is going to kill him just because he defeated her sister. Please help him, Kelsey said worriedly. She didn't know anything about the situation, so she unconditionally believed Zen's words. Perhaps the only ones who realized that Zen was talking nonsense were LaQuisha and Elena, who both knew Zen very well. But now, in order to save him, LaQuisha chipped in, Master Alfredo, Thad has made a great contribution to our clan. As the head of the clan, are you going to stand aside and let Rochelle kill him over such a trifle? LaQuisha is right, the ranking of our clan has gone up all because of Thad. As the head of the clan, how can you refuse to help him? Elena added. Alfredo kept silent. He didn't know what to say or do. Putting everything else aside, Zen was from the floating island of the Han clan, which meant that he was a member of their clan. What the three girls said made sense. However, Alfredo stood there hesitantly as he was unwilling to get involved in this fight. Swish! The invisible sword in the front shot toward Rochelle. The power contained in this huge sword was by no means something that even a consummate true god could ignore. However, Rochelle was wearing a careless expression, as if she knew she wouldn't get hurt. In her eyes, the strength source combined with the illusory sword was indeed powerful, but it all depended on who was wielding it. If it were Joy who was controlling the four swords, Rochelle would have no chance of fighting back. But even though Zen was controlling so much strength source, he could only crassly turn it into four huge swords. It was difficult for him to even transform the illusory sword into the Buddha Emperor sword. Perhaps this kind of simple and violent attack would have a miraculous effect when fighting a top-ranked true god, but it was nothing when it came to a consummate true god. Rochelle dodged the overhead strike with just one small movement. However, Zen had also taken her reaction into account. The moment she dodged the strike, another huge sword followed her and horizontally slashed toward her from another direction. But unexpectedly, Rochelle took a light step up in the air and floated upward. Swish, swish, Zen's gaze froze. He sent the last two swords flying toward Rochelle. This time, the two swords actually forced her into a corner. If she couldn't rush out, she might really be killed by him. You have a good mind, brat, Rochelle said with a smile. In a bid to avoid contact with the swords, she curled her body up to the extreme. A split second later, she disappeared and then appeared behind Zen. As a consummate true god, she could use spatial transference as freely as she wanted. Although she had a casual smile on her face, her eyes were full of murderous intent. The difference in strength between the two of them was too great. Without the help of those four giant swords, it would be hard for Zen to even deal with Soren, a top-ranked true god, let alone Rochelle, one of the best consummate true gods in the Divine Land. The scene looked more like a cat playing with a mouse than two warriors fighting against each other. Zen had no room to fight back. Even the sword Rochelle was casually wielding was not something he could avoid now. Swoosh, 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 the four swords turned around and hacked at Rochelle, who was now behind Zen. But the strength source within the four swords was weakened very quickly. Now, half of the strength source had been used up. Using the swords to attack was only a form and could do nothing to Rochelle. Stop struggling, said Rochelle indifferently. She didn't even need to dodge the four swords, and the scarlet sword in her hand kept waving wildly. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. In the blink of an eye, she launched 4 strikes. Every sword of Zen's was slashed into pieces. After the 4 swords dispersed, Rochelle waved her sword for the 5th time. This casual sword strike was more than enough to take Zen's life. But just as she was about to launch her strike, a middle-aged man in lavish clothes appeared beside her and reached out his hand, which had a metallic luster. He gently pinched her sword with his thumb, index finger, and middle finger. Although his hand stopped her sword, the blood-red sword light didn't stop. It spread, ruthlessly hitting the palm of his hand. Clank. After a moment, save for the crisp sound, there was no trace of the sword light, and his hand was completely intact. Stop it, Rochelle, Troy said calmly. Why did you stop me? Rochelle asked coldly. At the same time, Alfredo quietly appeared behind her and said, no matter where Thad came from, he is still a member of our Han clan. It won't be too late to make a decision after things are clear. Under the persuasion of the 3 girls of the Han clan, Alfredo had been hesitating about whether he should stop Rochelle. The truth was, he personally didn't like Zen and didn't care about whether he lived or died. But now that Troy had come forward, as the head of the Han clan, Alfredo would seem cold-blooded if he didn't do anything. Troy glanced at Alfredo with disdain in his eyes before turning back to Rochelle. As you said, there is indeed something that doesn't add up about this guy's background. But whatever it is, he was chosen by the Holy Emperor of our Dongfang clan. It won't be too late to deal with him after we find out his true origins. There's no need to rush to kill him. In Troy's eyes, Zen was just a fish on a chopping board. No matter what, he would not be able to escape. Why did Rochelle have to kill him in such a hurry? Oh, I see, Rochelle said expressionlessly as she pulled her sword out of Troy's hand. However, the moment she pulled out the sword, murderous intent flashed in her eyes. The blood-red light on the sword spun madly, turning into a blood all before shooting towards Zen's head once again. Chapter 1939, A Calm Mind. Rochelle's attack was as quick as lightning. Zen couldn't dodge it at all because the internal momentum hidden in that blood all was extremely sharp. When encountering a top-ranked true god like Saran, Zen still had the ability to fight back. However, he didn't have the chance to put up even a desperate fight against the fatal attack of a consummate true god. Even before the blood all made contact with him, his soul was firmly grasped by the powerful killing intent from the blood all. He felt a thrill of horror run through his body. The killing intent in the murdering godly way always had a special effect on the opponent's soul. With that, Rochelle could easily kill the soul-killing ghosts. Naturally, Zen felt as if he was going to die. Although Rochelle was quick, there was someone who was quicker than her. Troy barely even blinked, but somehow his hand, which had a metallic luster, shot out faster than Rochelle's blood all, catching it in his palm. Clank, 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 the still spinning blood all made harsh noises as it clanged against Troy's hand. However, Troy's hand was too strong. The blood all could almost penetrate everything, but it couldn't penetrate his hand at all. Soon, the metallic luster on the surface of the hand became more and more intense until it was glowing with a kind of strange and powerful energy. A moment later, Troy clenched his fist around the blood all, covering it completely. Bang! A dull sound came from Troy's hand as the blood all exploded, releasing a strong energy. However, the energy was firmly contained within Troy's fist. Nevertheless, Zen, who was standing nearby, could feel the power of that energy. He knew without a doubt that if this energy had escaped from Troy's hand and touched him, it would have instantly annihilated him. Wow, he is so strong, Zen thought in great astonishment. On the surface, these consummate true gods didn't seem to be as intimidating as holy beings, but their power was also extremely terrifying. Although warriors had watched these consummate true gods battle in the arena of legends, witnessing them fighting in the real world was a completely different feeling altogether. Troy cast a glimpse at Rochelle and said coldly, "I've said that no matter where this guy is from, his fate will be decided by our Dongfang clan. Don't humiliate yourself again." Anger was written all over Rochelle's pretty face when she heard what he said, and a fierce light glinted in her eyes. She couldn't help but feel aggrieved. After all, she had wanted to kill Zen because she believed he was Mike's man, and it was the Dongfang clan which was the chief plotter in dealing with the Luo clan. She had never expected to be stopped by Troy, a member of the Dongfang clan. It was so ironic. Although Troy was a man of few words, he wouldn't change his mind no matter what others said. He rarely fought others and had never challenged anyone in the arena of legends. However, his strength was unfathomable, and no consummate true god could ignore this guy. Rochelle didn't want to offend him here, so all she could do was glare at Zen. Then, in a flash, she returned to the bottom of the goddess statue. Seeing the ghastly expression on Rochelle's face, Nellie comforted her in a low voice, "Rochelle, don't be angry. Even if you are right about his identity, he won't be able to leave." Even if Zen escaped the Time-Sea Forbidden Land, there were holy beings right outside the Forbidden Land. It would be impossible for Zen to escape under their eyes. With knitted brows, Rochelle replied, "Of course I know that. But for some reason, I feel afraid that if I don't kill this guy now, I won't have a chance in the future." It was based on this intuition that she had acted so recklessly just now. Unfortunately, Troy had been quicker than her. After saving Zen, Troy didn't plan to restrict him. He just glanced at Zen indifferently and said, "You can move freely in the valley, but don't think about running away. Otherwise, no one can save you." Troy and Rochelle were actually on the same side. It wasn't to protect Zen that he had stopped Rochelle from killing him. In fact, Troy believed Rochelle's words. However, he thought that she didn't have the qualification to kill Zen so casually. He believed that the decision about whether to kill Zen or let him live should be determined by Nicholas. After saying those few words, Troy walked away. There was only one person left standing next to Zen, and it was none other than Alfredo. "Anyway, you are a member of our Han clan. If this is all really a misunderstanding, we will handle it for you," he said. Zen just gave him a faint smile in response. Except for Joy and the three girls, no one in the Han clan treated him as their family even though he had made a big contribution to the clan. Alfredo had just mouthed some sympathetic platitudes. The real reason why he had stepped forward was because he had wanted to show the others that the Han clan was not an ungrateful clan. If Troy hadn't intervened, Alfredo would have pretended to be deaf. After Alfredo walked away, Zen remained standing in the same spot. The few consummate true gods not far away were dealing with golden shell turtles that were crawling slowly, so they hadn't paid much attention to the conflict between Rochelle and Zen. At the pace you've been improving, if you had faced these consummate true gods a little later, they would have been no match for you. Unfortunately, you let the cat out of the bag too early. Alas, Master Evil couldn't help but sigh in Zen's mind. In fact, Master Evil was the one who had suggested Zen go to the floating island. He had thought that if Zen joined the floating island of some clan, he could train at ease and search for opportunities in various forbidden areas, improving himself step by step. This was indeed a good suggestion. But he hadn't expected Zen to be eye-catching enough to attract Joy's interest. And in order to help Joy, Zen had to achieve a high ranking in the arena of legends, which had attracted even more attention. In the end, Rochelle had figured out his identity. So many coincidences had led to the current situation. As soon as I stepped into the divine land, I knew that my path was destined to be filled with unpredictable dangers. It would be strange if everything kept going smoothly. I'm just going to take it step by step. I'm not scared at all, Zen told Master Evil in his mind. In the evolutionary universe, Mike had arranged everything for him, so Zen had been able to elude danger every single time. However, after he had arrived at the divine land, everything was destined to be different. Even though Mike's plans were magical, it was impossible for him to control all the aspects. If Mike could deduce everything in advance, then he would be superior to all the holy beings and become the head of all the holy beings. Anyway, it was fortunate that Zen had a mind that was strong enough to face any situation thrown at him. Just now, after he had almost died, his mind had been in a chaos. Anyone else who had been in Zen's situation wouldn't have been able to calm down in such a short period of time. However, Zen had already managed to calm himself down. Once he was feeling okay, Zen took out his Buddha Emperor sword and walked toward the golden shell turtles. Since no one was going to restrict his freedom, he wanted to take this opportunity to make himself stronger. The holy beings outside the forbidden area also saw this scene clearly. Haha, Rochelle is getting smarter and smarter. According to Harold's words, there is indeed something fishy about that little guy's origin, Clark said with a laugh. Harold did mention the Han clan during his speech after his open battle. And it was at that time that the kid appeared. The chances of him being Mike's man are really very high. Jeremiah also nodded in agreement. With a calm face, Samuel said, Mike has always been fond of military tactics. It's possible that he has put a pawn in our Han clan to carry out his plans, but these are only speculations and can't be completely confirmed. Rochelle crossed the limit by trying to kill someone so casually. Samuel is right, said Nicholas in a calm voice. When Thad leaves the Time Sea Forbidden Land, I'll personally investigate him. Everything will be clear at that time. Rochelle was still too impulsive. Fortunately, Troy was able to stop her. The holy beings grew more and more curious about Zen's identity. Among these people, only Joy knew the truth. Although she looked calm on the surface, she felt restless in her heart. She hadn't expected things to develop like this in the Time Sea Forbidden Land. There was no way to turn back now. If things went on like this, Zen would be in grave danger. Thinking of something, she sighed softly, and a touch of determination flashed quietly in her soft eyes. She had just made a decision. Chapter 1940, The Time Elk. As Zen finished up his slaughter, there weren't many golden shell turtles left in the valley. Soon after he had killed the last golden shell turtle, the four swords became weaker and disappeared completely. Without the golden shell turtle's cooperation, Zen simply couldn't copy such large swords. As he finished, he immediately returned to the goddess statue. Thad, muttered Laquisha, who obviously felt very guilty towards Zen. Just as Rochelle had said not too long ago, name wasn't the key factor here. In fact, only 3 members of the Mew clan knew of Zen's name, namely Marco, Mateo and Pranav, but they had previously died in the evolutionary universe. It's okay, Zen smiled gently at Laquisha. He simply didn't take this matter to heart. Elena and Kelsey kept silent, holding their lips tightly shut in a straight line. Kelsey still didn't know what was going on. She even thought that Rochelle was deliberately making trouble for Zen, and she thus offered her comfort. Well, it doesn't matter. I believe that the Holy Emperors can ultimately tell right from wrong. As Kelsey spoke, both Laquisha and Elena couldn't help but sigh interiorly to themselves. If the holy beings were to investigate this matter, Zen would probably be unable to hide anything much longer. As for the other true gods, they didn't have much of an opinion on him. Most of them only cared about the upcoming attack from the next group of monsters. Generally speaking, they had to go through 8 rounds of attacks in order to protect the goddess statue, among which the 7th and 8th rounds were the most difficult. It was also these 2 final rounds that offered the most rewards. However, the rewards were only divine might coins. This time, there was something wrong in the Time Sea Forbidden Land. It could only be expected that the situation would be different. The golden shell turtles had appeared in the 6th round. Who knew what would happen next? The true gods could only stand around and wait anxiously. Fortunately, there were many consummate true gods guarding the valley now. Even if the fierce beasts were very strong, they would be capable of coping with them. Rumble. A few moments later, a loud rumble could be heard throughout the entire valley. It was so intense that everyone thought the 7th wave of fierce beasts appeared. All of the true gods present immediately rested their eyes on the surrounding entrances. However, no beasts came from the south, the west or the north. The east. They're coming from the east. A true god roared as he watched the entrance at the east of the valley. All the other true gods diverted their attention to the east. Even Zen was no exception. No, that can't be true. Even if the difficulty of guarding the goddess statue has greatly increased, it's just impossible for such a thing to appear. Exclaimed a true god. Even top-ranked true gods like Reginald and Soren couldn't help but radiate a strong sense of fear. Rochelle, what is that? Asked Nellie in a trembling, terrified voice. The 3 Han clan girls hid themselves behind Alfredo. Kelsey had already turned ghastly pale and the other 2 seemed to be following suit. All of a sudden, a dark brown monster appeared at the entrance in the east. The monster was as tall as a small palace. On its back were a pair of unique, never-before-seen wings. Now, the wings were spread out, and everyone could clearly see the colorful power of time that flew through their bone membrane. This monster's head was like that of a peeled sheep, but its face was more ferocious and terrifying. Its eyes were dark and looked as sharp as knives. The claw, Zen murmured as his eyes narrowed and stopped on the monster's claw. The claw had 3 toes, which was exactly the same as that he had seen coming through the star door. That's not a part of this stage. It seems that the goddess statue stage has come to an end ahead of time. Rochelle stood up briskly, a short sword and a short machete appearing in her hands at once. That's a 6th grade time elk that we personally lured from the 3rd stage of the Time Sea Forbidden Land. The monsters' grades corresponded to those of the Forbidden Lands in the Divine Land. The Time Sea Forbidden Land was a 6th grade Forbidden Land, and this time elk was the most powerful beast that existed. It was possible that even more powerful beasts existed on the 4th and 5th stages of the Time Sea Forbidden Land, however no one could enter those places. Of course, these beasts were far beyond any warrior's consideration. The consummate true gods had worked hard to lead the time elk from the third stage to the first. Under the siege, the elk had gone mad, and the true gods found themselves with no other choice but to enter the star door in order to hide temporarily. By doing so, they had equally gained a little time for a rest. Initially, they had thought that they had the time to rest longer. After all, the trials of the goddess statue were usually composed of 8 kinds of fierce beasts, occasionally 9 or even 10 kinds. There was no way they could have expected the trials to end in advance this time around. Once the light curtain isolating the valley lifted and disappeared, the time elk that had been wandering just outside for a long time rushed in immediately. The elk exuded an intimidating aura, and the warriors, who were mentally unstable, had no courage to fight back. The true gods in the valley might be the talents of the powerful clans on the floating islands, but due to such, many of them didn't have much experience. More importantly, they clearly didn't have the sufficient mental practice, which was obviously lacking here. When faced with the elk, it was only expected that the true gods would become fearful. On the contrary though, Zen felt calm, much like the other consummate true gods. "See, my decision was right. The elk's madness can only last for about 10 to 15 minutes, Rochelle emphasized. At that, she turned her head and looked at Walton, who wasn't far off, and asked, "What exactly are you thinking about? Or better yet, tell me, what are you waiting for?" On Walton's shoulder sat a purple machete. The blade of the machete was extremely wide and thick, like a flat hammer that emanated an intimidating aura. "I see," Walton replied unwillingly, and then rudely roared to the true gods, "Don't just stand there in a daze, unless you want to die. Head to the other side of the valley. No one can guarantee your absolute safety. Watch your backs and be clever." Many of the true gods had been deeply seized by the elk's astonishing aura. As Walton's words broke their dazed state, their hearts began to pound hard in their chests and they quickly left the goddess statue. They all ran to the west of the valley at an incredibly fast speed. The aftermath of a battle between 2 consummate true gods was extremely terrifying. If ordinary true gods were involved, they would all die without exception. No one could even imagine the results to come from the fight between dozens of consummate true gods and the elk. Dang it, I would have run away had I known this earlier. Even when facing the time ghosts, we still had a chance to live. Alas, I don't think so anymore. But now, we have nowhere to run anymore. Many true gods complained one after the next as they helplessly retreated. At first, a few of them noticed the consummate true gods entering the valley and thought they were saviors. However, the so-called saviors had attracted an even more horrible existence. The true gods were immediately seized with remorse. Howl, the time elk suddenly raised its pointy head and roared toward the sky. The whole valley began to shake violently, so much so that the space gave off a faint sign of collapsing. Both space and time were slightly disordered and altered, but in the moment, that was rather difficult to perceive. Whoosh! In a flash, Walton disappeared and quickly reappeared directly in front of the time elk. He was literally no more than a few inches away. Fearlessly and exuding braveness, Walton held onto his machete with an indifferent expression etched on his face. His foot stepped onto the ground. Thump! With a muffled sound, the earthy yellow internal momentum quickly spread throughout, and Walton found himself integrated as one with the entire valley. It was obvious now that he also cultivated the earth-godly way, just like Nathaniel. He, on the other hand, had reached the consummation level.